All right, hello and welcome to this episode of Stampscapes Live. So if you're watching it live or watching it in replay, thanks so much for tuning into the channel. We have the Stamp 483G. I haven't even inked it up yet. Just got it in, and we're going to test it out in some stamp sketches now. All right, so one of the things when you get new stamps, sometimes it's good to just kind of, I mean, I don't do this all the time, but I just scour it off a little bit. There's a resist that they use to remove the rubber from the mold sometimes. It's not sprayed on every pressing, but, you know, it's not a bad idea to just kind of wipe your stamp down a little bit. And I don't know, I mean, just inking it up too and just doing some test prints does the same thing. But either way, just kind of prepping it a touch is always the best for impression quality and the adhering and transfer of ink onto the surface like this to transfer onto your paper. Okay, so I'm going to do some of these stamp sketches in different kind of base inks. Okay, so on the stamp sketches that I want to finish with water-based media, I'll probably use a StazOn black. And for imagery that I might want to color with alcohol markers and kind of a wider range of media, maybe I'll go with the dye-based inks. Okay, dye-based inks for sure with your alcohol-based media, because the alcohols will go back into solution with the addition of alcohol. Okay, so let's see. Let's just test these out here. Now I call this the Mystic Bridge because it really accompanies, I think, really well with our mystic imagery in the background. It has kind of a similar kind of quality to it, but you can really use it however way you want to. You can use pine trees in here, you can use deciduous, whatever you want around it. But, you know, let's just give this a try here. So this is going to be a visual lead-in, all right? So it has a little creek leading up to the bridge in the background. Hello, Jeannie, CM, and Debbie. We'll get that one out to you, Jeannie. Okay, so let's go with this one. Let's do it in the dye-based inks. Let's do a couple. I'll do a few dye-based ink things first. Okay. The dye-based inks, I can go switch to the StazOn, and that'll be fine. If I do the StazOn first, then I go with the dye-based inks. I'll probably want to clean this off first. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I mean, you could do it really high and just have a, you know, higher creek area, but I'm going to use this fairly low in my composition. This is kind of like a bookmark size. It's a little bit wider than a book, so we'll call it vertical slimline, I guess. Okay. And there we go. I don't know, maybe I should have done a full thing, but let me see here. I just realized my other camera wasn't on. Picked and picked. Oh, not that it matters. But let me see here. Oh, camera B. Okay, got it. All right, so let's do a couple of impressions. Let's go really wide. Let's go landscape on this one here, just so I can get the full image in here. After all, it's the first video, so I might as well get the whole thing in here. Let's go quarter page. Okay, so some of this paper that I'm using is a semi-gloss. This one is a complete uncoated matte. Okay. Yes, Debbie, it's brand new. All right, so let's do it this one right here. Like, so this is the complete matte cardstock, and I really like the use of the alcohol inks with this the other day. Matte paper, which I've rarely used, an uncoated matte. So I don't think it's a coated matte. It's just completely uncoated. So there we go with that, and I'll put some additional foreground around here. But we have our background in there, so that is that. And let's go, let me see if I have a full glossy. So let's go with a full glossy here. So matte, uncoated, semi-gloss, glossy. Oh, let's go vertical on this one. Oh, here's what I'm gonna do too. Okay, so when I'm doing these in the different inks, stays on and dyes, I don't know. I might be able to tell if I really look close and study it, but I have a hard time telling what ink I used on these pieces. So that being said, on the back of these, I'm going to write. Okay, so this is a D. I'll just go D like that. D. Because the problem is, when I didn't do this the other day, I had a bunch of stays on pieces. So I was giving people some examples of coloring with some alcohol markers. And it was like, oh my God, that was the stays on. So even though I allowed the ink to dry for quite some time, the alcohol ink still put the stays on back into solution a little bit. So it was kind of graying out. It was pulling some of the ink off the paper. I don't remember what paper it was either. But so I'll do that, and then I'll put I don't know, S for solvent or stays on the other pieces. So with this one right here, I really like, if you've watched some of those other recent pieces where I've done the watercolor pencils or something like that, I just think the stays on is probably better for that, unless you just let your dye-based inks dry overnight. I don't find them really going back into solution with the watercolor pencils and water treatments on this, on the dyes. But still, you know what I mean? If I did something with it tonight, I think it's just better to have the stays on with the water-based coloring on there. So, hello, Cecile. I thought that was 3 stamps. Nope, you get it in 1. It makes it so much easier. There is the Stonebridge separate stamp, that you can use with, the left and right sides. So you probably thought it was a left, right, and then bridge used over there. It's just in 1 stamp like that here. So, yeah, it takes care of it in 1 fell swoop. Okay, before I get to any stays on treatment, let's add in some additional forms in the back here. So let's go with, so let's pretend there's like a little lake back in here or something like this, and this is the creek, leading up to it. I don't know, leading away from it, whichever way you see it. And let's build some background in here. Okay, so let's go with the Mystic Hills left and right. Now, if I want those trees a different color, I should do that, but let's just keep this really basic right now. I'll bring in a lot of different variation into it later, but let's just see what this stamp looks like in context with the other stamps for right now. Okay, so I wiped off the bottom of this because I'm going to have this going down into clouds or something like that. All right, so it just stamps out much lighter right in that space. Okay, and I need to get more blocks. Okay, here. I just cleaned off my tack and peel again. This is like 20-year-old tack and peel. Look how, sticky that is. I mean, it looks all gummed up, but you just kind of rinse it off and it is really sticky again. I don't clean it off too well, because sometimes when you do, it almost becomes too tacky immediately. But like I said, that's a lot. This is a big, heavy block too, and just, it's quite sticky, tacky. All right. Let's see. Let's wiping off more of this right here where it might go into this one. So I'll make this look like it's farther back in the distance by just mopping off more of that ink where it overlaps into this image, if I do overlap it. Yeah, maybe I won't overlap it. I'll just go up here a little bit more, but it should still look farther off in the distance as a result of being kind of drier and stamping out lighter as a result. Okay, like that, and I tell you what, I'm going to do another one, just a small little piece of it like that. Down right in here. All right, and let's put some mountains back up. And I almost forgot about that waterfall kind of technique here. If you've seen those videos where I kind of do a waterfall in between this mountain just by, drawing it basically, a few lines with either a colored pencil or watercolor pencil. If you have the Mystic Mountains, I'd highly recommend the waterfall technique. It adds, a lot into the piece, I find, and it's like super easy to do it too. All right, let's go about right here. Okay, and this is the smaller one. Two large ones can be used as well, but I don't know, there's just a little tiny space right here, so. Okay, and let's go right back here. All right, so kind of a pretty strong visual lead-in. I mean, anytime you have a structure, or you can put, I don't know, animals, or you know what I mean, any kind of strong focal point, and like man-made structures are just, strong visual lead-in. It adds that extra dynamic element into a piece. Hold on a second. Oh, someone's delivering something out front. Sounded like really loud. Okay, so let's see. I think that looks pretty good. This still can be, I'm trying to think of if I could still put like a little boat or something like that in there, if it's still in scale with it, and I think it is. All right, so smaller space in here, and I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a mountain behind here, and then so I can have some room for some kind of sky up here. I think that might be kind of interesting. So let's do this. That'll just take care of it from edge to edge. And where I'm going to overlap some of this against some of these trees and maybe even the bridge, I'll really wipe off with a dry paper towel the bottom side of this. Okay, so I'm taking up a good amount of ink, but it should still stamp out, just lighter. Okay, like this. Like about like so. And you see how that kind of fades out like that, where it stamps out lighter. So don't do it with a wet paper towel. Do it with a dry paper towel. And then see, this up here is, you know what I mean? It's 100% of this black, but you can see it transition down here where this is like a, oh, I don't know, like a 20% gray or something like that. So it's, I mean, it's subtle because this transitions anyways in a bunch of dots. So it's going to look lighter anyways, but why not make those even lighter? And then you're pushing kind of visual distance. You know what I mean? And all you have to do is go like this. It takes like 2 seconds to do. So it's just a quick little trick to really kind of control visual distance in a scene. Okay. All right. So that is that. And this one right here, let's just have this one just a billowy, cloudy day or something like that. Yeah, maybe I'll put some just some clouds behind there. You know what I mean? Nice sunshine. It doesn't have to be this kind of this location. So let's see. I've used this cloud so much over this last week in preparation for a Stampscapes basic class, and one of the basics was learning how to use this cloud right here. So if you have the unmounted version, I had people kind of draw an arrow on the back of their cloud, you know, with the billows facing the direction of the light, as someone showed me they did on their stamp. I don't know, this is like a couple years ago or something like this when I was in a class. They said, yeah, see, Kevin, I put this arrow on the back so I knew what direction, you know, see, the lighting is coming from that direction. So they put an arrow on the back of their, you know, piece of rubber, not a wood-mounted stamp. Okay, so dry paper towel, wipe off the edges, and then again it'll stamp out lighter for you, and you won't have this heavy kind of rectangular shape in your piece. And just overlap, and you get a nice billowy, see that transition right up there? So see right in here, this mountain transition from darker to lighter down here. This right here, it's not a super dark blue, but it's darker down here, but look how that transitions off, and it's like completely, you know, nice, airy, non-blocky looking print, okay? So this is what the cloud looks like just as is, right? But see, I wiped off all that, or a lot of it, so it transitions. So it's still there, you know, you can see all that in there, but it's like a 5% version of that medium blue, okay? So just employ the wiping off whatever technique right there, you know, and it just makes your, I don't know, whatever, our stampy lives so much easier. Our stamp, scenic stamping blending life, so much easier. See that right there? All right. And that stamp, it stamped into the bridge, but the bridge, you know, I wiped it off down here, so it's like a really super light blue in there. You don't see this like heavy bottom line running right through that bridge. And I stamped, that cloud goes like right through here, but all I did was just wipe it off like that, okay? So now you don't even have to worry about it. You don't have to do any kind of masking or anything like that. Just wipe it off. All right, so let's see. I'm going to have some, like a little opening in this cloud with some light coming down here, I think. So I'm going to take this cloud and I'll stamp it this way and then this way in the direction facing the light source, okay? And you can do this with any sky figure. I just wipe off the edge, and it makes for a really super soft and billowy looking, you know, transition. See, I just overlap this into this one, but you don't see this heavy line right there, right? This is overlapping this. This one right here goes like this, and this one right here goes like this. So it's like they've overlapped about that much. It's like a full inch. So you don't have to line anything up super carefully or anything like that. If you just do the simple wiping off like that. Okay, so see this right here? I've just left a little bit of space, and the clouds are facing in the direction of that light each time. So like I said, if you have an unmatted piece of rubber, just put an arrow kind of pointing in the direction of the light. So if the light's right here and the cloud's right here, then you can have the light coming from that way, like that. So it's like that and like that. All right, so that is those are my foundations for the dye-based pieces. So if you just logged on, this is a piece of matte. This is semi-gloss coated cardstock, and this one right here is a glossy card. So you can see the age of this one right here. This is probably a 20-year-old pack of glossy, and you see it's, you know what I mean? It's not like acid-free or something like that. I don't care about this yellowish tone, you know, tinge to it. It's going to get colored anyway. And if it looks a little bit more aged, then fine, you know. It just, you know, if it's an older piece like that, it just makes it more valuable, right? It's like wine. Okay, so I'm going to fill this area out right here with some additional texture, and that's the sedge filler. You can do that or not, you know, because that area is going to get filled in with color anyway. So it doesn't matter if you do that or not. But if you can get a little bit of extra texture in there and just take care of your kind of, you know, some of the depth anyway, just inherently, it's always a good idea to do that. It makes your life with coloring and shading and all that type of thing so much easier later on. Okay, let's see. Jeannie needs to try a slim line. Well, Jeannie, you like working like large, you know? So why don't you do like a, I don't know, like a 5 by, you know, 11 slim line. You know what I mean? So you can still work a large format. But it's just, you know, your dimensions are just going to be a little bit more, you know, varied from, you know, height versus width or something like that. But you can still go big. Jeannie, do you have, I'm trying to remember, Jeannie, if you have 11 by 17, you can go with like a 5 by 17 or something like that. Cecile, I worked so hard today on fog and just can't make it happen. I was using, what's so hard about it, Cecile? I'm joking. You're using too much white probably, or you didn't leave enough white on your paper. So you have to leave, you have to retain some area of white in your scene, okay, before you get to it. Because if you're adding white back into it, then it needs to reflect the lighting within the scene. So if it's all dark, what you're saying is there's no white light or something like that. There's no illumination. So the fog can kind of look out of place. And as far as the technique goes, almost 100% of the people do this. And this is why I have this sheet right here. I was showing people what not to do. They go in with like that amount of ink as opposed to like that amount. That's about 20 taps with a cotton ball. And that's kind of the consistency you want. But what people do is they start applying it, and with like 5 taps, you can't even see anything because it's so dry on the cotton ball, right? You know? So they go harder because they want to see something. But I say, you're doing it right if you get it, and where you can kind of start seeing it within 15 or 20 taps, okay? And then you just kind of develop it. 15 or 20 taps like takes like 5 seconds though. You know, it's like, and that's it. Now, I mean, the lighter it is though, the more you can apply because it's not going to show up as much. So it just depends on what you have on there. Hello, Paula. Good to see you. I don't know what's so difficult for you guys, you know? I mean, it's like the easiest thing that you can possibly do, but it let's say you use 20 colors on a scene. No, that's an example that probably none of us ever do, okay? But adding one layer of this, okay, somewhere can be effective as, I don't know, 20 different layers of other things. And the reason why is because this is the thing that adds light, but it adds a textural transition in your scenes that's doesn't exist with just about anything else that we do. Everything is always hard in stamping, okay? I'm talking about from a textural standpoint. Everything is visually crisp, okay? Except when you can wipe things off and that looks really soft, right? Inherently, right? But then when we start applying tone and tone and tone and tone in there, colored pencils, there are certain things that are also look kind of soft, like pastels are just softer looking and colored pencils. But those types of things can be enhanced too. So let's just talk about this right now, because this is the thing that always frustrates me when people say, "Oh my God, I can't do it." But I know what they're doing though. And it's completely understandable in terms of a visual perspective, because everyone's used to seeing something when they apply it, right? We don't want to take something and it's like we're applying a blue tint or something like that, a blue ink, and it's like invisible until you apply it 20 times. We don't do that. So look on this scene right here. Okay, so where would you add like a fog or anything like that in this piece? Okay, let me see if anyone knows that. Oh, you can put it in the comments section. You might win a prize. I'm joking. Okay. Let me see here. Oh, let me see right here. Yeah. Well, that's it right there. You're applying way too much, Jeannie. If anyone's having a hard time with this, it's because there's way too much ink on your material. So you can think about it like this. Think about it. This is what you need to think about, though, in terms of the sensibility of this. You need to think about it like you're applying powder to a scene, like talc powder or something like that, okay? Let's see, at the bottom and around the rocks, perfect. Okay, so when you're saying at the bottom, okay, so here's where you're adding this in. I'm not going to add this in really anywhere except for where light is, okay? All right, because that makes sense too, right? Because mist, what that is it's suspended moisture in the air, right? They're invisible to the naked eye until you put lighting on it, So if you walked out and if it was a moonlit night, but there was a bunch of fog everywhere, so with the absence of, like street lamps or something like that, let's say you're out in nature and there's no light, you're not going to see any mist, okay? There's no like phosphorescent, bioluminescence out there or something like that. So when it comes to a scene like this, see, there's options, so you don't have to add it in every spot right here, but the natural spots are going to be where you've retained light right here, okay? Right here, see that? And right down in here. And I mean, I do creep it around some of these, little areas around my base like this, but here. So we're going to go like this. This is a piece of semi-gloss, okay? So you're taking it like this, all right? Now watch this right here. Do you see that difference right there with those trees? And that's it right there. I mean, you know what I mean? Now, it can be hard if someone has a hard time with that. Watch this now, okay? I mean, that's like an extreme example. But the thing is about this, though, white pigment ink, there. You know what I mean? It's not a hard thing to do. So you just dab down lighter like that, okay? Now let's say I add way too much, okay? Okay, what you can do too, here you just take your dry cotton ball like this, and let's start removing it. See how this is getting removed right here? And just remove as much as you want. Now I removed a little bit too much, but you see like that? Or you can use your best, tool in your whatever your toolbox, okay? And let me purposely add way too much right here, okay? Let's do that right there. Although that doesn't look too bad, but you just take your finger like this, right? And dab that down. See how that's removing like that? Now see how that's right there? You just go like that. So here it is right here. But what also people do is they don't heed my advice when I talk about oscillating it, okay? So what you do is you put it kind of somewhere. So sometimes when people start doing this, they add this whole thing is underneath like a big layer of white, you know what I mean? Where they've just toned it all out. They're not looking and seeing what they're doing. And that's the biggest thing too. People are concentrating on application. They're not concentrating on what's happening. So you have to observe something. So you can just add a couple taps like this down like that. Now see, this is getting drier on here, right? So this took 10 taps right here. That took about 5 right there, okay? And here's what you do too. This is what you need to concentrate on. Just grab a black piece of paper like this, matte paper, and I want you to do this with it. If you can do this, you can tone in your scenes perfectly, okay? So what you're doing is you're adding it like that, and then you're transitioning like this. So see this is how it's lighter, and then it's going darker, right? Because you're adding more like that. So here's this completely transition piece like this. This is really kind of light, and do you see that where it transitions like that? So what people are doing though, when they do this, they do this. So it's like hard edge and then nothing out there. So how does this apply to this? Here's my lighter area, like this, okay? You're dabbing it, and then you're moving it into the darkness, okay? Where it gets darker, you're not gonna see like illumination anymore. So you tone in from dark to light with color from dark to light like that, but you highlight or lighten from light to dark, okay? From the inside out usually. So you see this area right here? You're going like this. And don't just keep it there. You just kind of, and then just tap lighter this way. So it's like imagine we're putting makeup on something or something like that, and you're doing things and that's exactly what it is though. It's almost like you're applying like some sort of dry media to these pieces. Do you see that now? Like that? How that looks different. Now see how that looks very different from down here, but watch this little area right here. Okay, so just imagine this is our card like this, okay? And you want to apply some of this right in here. It's just, it looks okay as is, but it's not great. So I'm just going to apply this over some of these trees in the lighter area like this. Now watch this too. See this right here? I just kind of put some right here and then right down here. So don't put it over everything. Or you could, but I just think this looks a little bit better when you just kind of oscillate it though. And now you have kind of this mistier atmospheric piece as opposed to just all direct medium. It's in a sense, it's almost like you're removing, it's a totally additive process, but you're kind of removing in a way the visuals of what you've applied down there. So it's somewhat of a subtractive process, even though you are doing an additive process. So here's what's happening too. When you're doing this type of thing and you're kind of reclaiming some of the white of the paper, you're kind of changing a hemisphere of your brain, to doing something. It's almost like I don't know. It's a different type of sensibility. So you need to like switch your brain. I just know this because I used to teach stamp board where a big part of our class was going in and scratching back in highlights and things. And that class got completely silent, okay? And everyone was just doing it. It's like super relaxing too. I don't know what it is. It's like a I don't know what part of the brain it would be, the right side of the brain or something like that. There's less analytics or something like that. So I think it's just a complete right brain switch. Or you could be having a right brain experience stamping something like this out and adding colors, but then it's like really right brained or something like that. So you're going off more feeling and intuition. But see this right down here? So concentrate it from a little bit of heavier application to a lighter one. The easiest thing to do it is just to do it on something that's really light like this too. I mean, you can't even see it on this, so you have to add some tone in here. So employ that white pigment ink as much as you can, and it will, it adds worlds into your technique. From anything that you do too. And I use it on foils. I use it on the holographic vinyls. I don't know, it doubles, I think, to me, even if you use it sparingly, I think it doubles the visual kind of variation within a given space, because there wasn't anything that was terribly soft on here. The clouds and the distance like this, but this is adding in really soft lighting into a piece. From your textural range from soft to crisp, we're taking it from all a crisp thing, and you're adding like a vast range of things in it. And what type of light do people really like in their homes? They like a soft light, right? So you buy your soft, light bulbs. I always liken it to that, everyone, if you have a choice, people don't want like this harsh light, okay? When we go and buy light bulbs. So you're typically buying like softer lights. You never have this like incandescent bulb, like your lampshades and everything like that. It diffuses things and makes them softer. So that's what you're doing. And you can do it with one pad with every media you use. You use it with colored pencils, alcohol inks, dye-based inks, acrylic paint, watercolor things. One thing reaches across, just about every medium possible, and you can do it with one pad, So it's like doubling up on the visual information of everything. Doesn't have to be the brilliance either. It could be the color box or any those other ones like that. Okay, so enough about that. Watch, I have dedicated videos to this too. So it's like, I don't know, Stampscapes, and then you add in like fog mist into the search engine, the YouTube search engine, and it'll find it. Okay, let's do a couple of these other pieces right here. Let's come up with a different. Let's go with the stays on scenario here. So I want to do some of these with my watercolor pencils. I want to do some more colorful watercolor pencils too. Not just with this, the bridge here, but with just everything. I'm really liking those watercolor pencils. And then I do have some Inktense blocks that some people have brought up when I've done the watercolor pencils before. I just haven't used them too much, but I want to experiment with those more, some brighter colors and things like that. Okay, so, all right. So on this one right here, before I forget to, because these look almost exactly the same, I'll go with the S right here for stays on or solvent. There, and let's go with a really dramatic mountainscape behind here. I know, with cascading waterfalls, I think. So I'm gonna do these falls like it's feeding this stream right here. So I'll do kind of a narrow application of these mountains. I'll have the mountains kind of close to each other because this isn't like a super like gushing river right here, so we'll have a real small kind of waterfall in the background. And these will be cascading falls, so I usually don't want them all lined up perfectly, so I'll put some falls right here, and then I'll have it over here, and then over here, something like that. So what you're doing is you're kind of creating this S-curve up here, and that to, like the human eye, it's a little bit more graceful than just having like one waterfall, you know, one direct line like that. So you kind of break up your space a little bit more. Okay, so this will be the lower and closer mountain range. So I'll use the same one right in here like that. And then maybe I'll break it up. Maybe I'll go with the large and small, and then small and small up here. Okay, let's see. All right. Like that. I'm going to have like a little waterfall coming out from between those. So I didn't space these out too much because I want like a smaller one. Okay, then let me figure this out. Let me see. So the waterfall's right here. I wonder if I should have the next one. I think it's best over here still. Or should I do it over here? I'm going to do it over here, I think. Like that. I might have to go small. Yeah. Let me see the smaller one. No, I think I should go with the smaller one now that I see it. So, how is everyone? I hope everyone's well. I had a big workshop over the weekend, and it was remote. So there were some people via Zoom, and then there was a live group via Zoom too. But it was kind of weird for me because usually in Zoom meetings or, you know, well, Zoom and especially live, I can see everyone's pieces, you know, everyone's with what they're working on. But on this case, I couldn't see anyone, so I had to kind of go off of what the people assisting me in the class were telling me, you know. Did everyone get that down? Should we move on to the next step? Which it worked. I mean, we did what we had to do, you know what I mean? But it's good for me to be able to see, you know, what people are doing, so I can say, hey, okay, add a little bit more ink or whatever, or what, you know, something like that. But it was fun though. After we got our little audio type of thing worked out. Okay, so I'm gonna have a waterfall coming in like here and here, going into the clouds like that, and so this water, and then creek. Okay, let's go with one more. I was debating on whether or not to leave this open so I can put a quote up there instead, but let's go with these. Let's try to make it dramatic here. And I'll put this one way over here, so I'll have some waterfall like that, and then like this. So it's like here, 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 and then here. Okay, I'm just going to use the second impression with this, so maybe it'll stamp out a touch lighter. Yeah, like that. All right, so maybe this one will be a watercolor pencil piece. Verna uses the white to cover up mistakes. I didn't mention that, but that's a major benefit of the white pigment ink. So it enhances and it I always forget the word I'm looking for, but it enhances and it kind of obscures. So if I have something that I don't like in a piece, or it's really weak, then I just put that white pigment ink over the top of it, and then it I don't know, it strengthens it, or it lessens my weak points because it's like hidden more. Right? You know what I mean? It's like fog. It's like you're putting out, let's say this is an actual location. You're a set director or something like that. And if, you got this area that, there wasn't enough budget in, the, whatever the set direction pieces, you have this like fog in the background, where it's like, okay, don't look over there. All right, so that was that. Oh, let's go with the. I haven't tried the watercolor pencils on an uncoated piece of matte paper before. Okay, so let's do something like that on this piece. I've been putting this. Okay, so I've been putting this bridge largely at the lower area of all these compositions right here. Let's take this card like this, and I'll put this higher up like this, so there's more water area down below. That was like the first lesson of my beginning class over the weekend. It's a lot of times people are like, "Hey, where do you stamp this thing out?" Okay, so I was using the Lakeside Cove. And here's an example of stamping that Lakeside Cove up high, but then here's other bits of it down here. But it's like simple. If you want more sky, then you stamp your objects lower. And if you want more, terrain down below, then you just stamp this up higher. And it's perfectly acceptable, right, with scenic stamping to stamp trees going off the top of the page or whatever, And it seems like it's something that's very basic, um, if someone's a scenic stamper, we stamp stuff hanging off the edge of the page, like this mountain goes off this page like that far, But two, if you've just been stamping objects before, like focal point objects, which a lot of people get in stamps, it's a definitive object. They're used to stamping out the entire thing every time. They won't stamp out like a half of a word stamp or a half of a, if there's a frame or something like that, you usually won't stamp it, hanging off half of the page. You're going to stamp it kind of more centralized. And then there's a figure in there, you're doing something like a birthday card. And it's a birthday cake or something like that. You're not going to stamp out like the cake like hanging off the edge of the page. So that's like the first thing that I discussed with them, is just getting comfortable with stamping, partials, using the trees off of something, to repeat in the background. Don't be afraid to go off the edge of the page with it, stuff like that. All right, so I want like another edge to this down here. So I'm going to add in something else. I hadn't thought about these. These are the Mystic trees left and right. Let's go with this right here, because these trees are much larger, so I can use this as the foreground right here. Okay, so that's right, Jeannie. I'm telling you, for the Ginger, for the for fog. If you're ever doing Halloween pieces, okay, that foggy type of atmospheric type of touch is like ideal for that. You can even do. People don't think about it either. You can stamp out a word stamp, that says something, right? And then use that fog around it so it looks like the word stamp is like suspended in, you know, atmosphere or something like that, and lighting at the same time. So um, that's cool to do. You can put highlights on word stamps too, you know, making them look more three-dimensional. Word stamps, you know, you can stamp it out. What would be really cool is you stamp it out and then shadow stamp it a little much lighter, and then put that word stamp around like fog, so you have this atmospheric type of quality to that impression. You know, it's word stamp, but a lot of times people don't kind of treat word stamps as like a central kind of focal point or subject matter. You know, it's just kind of stamped in there just to read. What you know, which is basic. You know, I wouldn't do, you know, kind of, you know, I wouldn't animate word stamps too much, but you could though. After all, they are kind of like the strongest focal point of any scene, because if you get like a big scene or something like that, and if there's like a word stamp in there, when people first look at it, they're going to scan it over and they're going to drop right into that word stamp and read it. I don't know if word stamps are stronger. They're probably stronger focal point, like initial focal points, than even like animals or people or something like that, because that's another thing that people tend to look at first. Um, okay, let's see. Let me do a couple of these right here, just to balance this off a little bit. So, you know, speaking of partials, I stamped out this portion right here, right there, and then I'll stamp out this portion right there, okay? But ink up more than you think you'll be using, okay? Just so you don't stamp it out and it's like, oh my God, I'm missing a bunch of that, you know, portion of the stamp right there. I'm gonna stamp this one up a little bit higher. Like about like so. We'll have a fog challenge sometime. We'll have a contest. Whoever does there'll be a prize for the foggiest scene and the strongest, maybe minimal use of fog, the most effective minimal application of fog, because that can be key too. You know, you can just put like a tiny little bit, you know, somewhere. Like this one would be really cool, for example. Let's say if I inked up this whole scene, but then you just had this fog creeping out underneath this bridge. You know what I mean? You know, that'd be kind of cool on a moonlit night or something, you know, up there. All right, so there's my foreground on this one. This would be good with like some little figure right down here. Let's add in some of my little tiny rocks small. It's weird stamping on the uncoated mat here. See, I can usually get more impressions off of this one inking, right? But this is matte, you know, so everything is like soaking in so much faster. Oh, by the way, so when if you're doing something, going back to that whole cloudy fog thing like this goes on differently on a coated paper over, say, something like a very absorbent matte like this, okay? So keep that in mind. You know, so if you're doing something like on glossy cardstock or a coated cardstock, with your Brilliance ink, what you do is you use less of it on there because it's not transferring in there, it's not soaking into your paper as fast. But you put some of this on matte, you might have to ink it up more because you're going to tap down like that and it's going to like grab that ink really fast into the pulp of the paper and the surface of the paper too. So you have to adjust for what you're working on. Working on a piece of photo stamping photo paper, that's all surface, okay? There's none of this that gets absorbed in there and it grabs it like super fast. So you just take more of it off of this before you apply it on there. So, just adjust accordingly. All right, so there's those little tiny rocks right there on this one, and this one is a S for stays on. I need to make sure that doesn't soak through this matte paper onto this side. I've never had soak through before until like 2 weeks ago when I used a piece of matte paper with that with those alcohol inks. Okay, so if anyone's just joined in, these are just some kind of initial stamp sketches that I'm doing, and I'm using some of these different types of papers, and I'm doing some in the stays on that I might want to apply water-based media to. And the ones that are done in the dyes, I might want to color with, I can apply with water-based media on this one too, but if I want to use something like stays on markers on this one, then the water-based dyes are, going to be good for that. Or you can use both, okay? You just don't want to use the stays on impressions with alcohol markers, otherwise you're going to be coloring this and it's going to be kind of smearing around because the alcohol is going to put the solvent inks back into solution a little bit, and you might end up, if you're using a light tone of blue example in there, or something like that, it might start looking grayish blue or something like that, and then the more you put on there, the more of this ink will get back into solution. It'll mix with the alcohol inks. You can use it for like if you have mastery of it, you can use that, to your advantage and, use some of that ink to do these color blends, but I don't know, I don't have that kind of mastery over alcohol inks. I use those minimally. All right, so I think I might want to try some of these out in some finished pieces. So I don't know if you're going to watch this, you might want to grab some coffee. I'm going to bore you to death. Like even more so, you know what I mean? When I do these stamp sketch videos, I get the itch to finish them off, because when I'm doing these types of things, it's like, color schemes are coming to mind, or just, different applications. Or when I start talking about the alcohol inks, it's like spinning in my head, okay, oh, that would look great with this, this, and this, or whatever, so... I don't know, it makes me want to use it. Okay, so on this one right here, let's see. I cleaned up my room the other day because I was teaching that workshop and I had to clear off my desk here because it was I couldn't find things, so I just wanted the things that I was going to be using in class. So, okay, so I'm just using some of these watercolor pencils from this, and I'm going to use it on this one's the semi-gloss with the solvent, stays on ink, okay? And I'll just do a minimal type of application with that. Now remember, this one is going to have those waterfalls in it too, so I'll just create my little waterfall areas like this. So this one's going to be like this. Okay, so lower on the horizon means closer, usually, in Western's perspective. Okay, so this will be my smallest waterfall. And you just gotta make a vertical line like that, okay? If you want to, you can use a ruler or something like that. So that's gonna be my waterfall there. On this one right here, I'm gonna have it coming from between these two mountains like this. Okay, let's go like that. And maybe I'll have it a little bit larger looking, okay, because this is getting closer to us. And this one right here will be like this. I mean, you could use a waterfall stamp back here too, But, something like that. Okay, so it's like this, this, this. I almost put this one should have been over a little bit more, but I don't know. Um, I failed that. Okay, so the watercolor pencils, I'm just going to do this top to bottom, dark to light shading convention on here. It's usually different in my I don't know, whatever other scenes. It's usually the tops of the mountains are a little bit lighter, where it's, being top lit. But on these ones, I think these ones look better when they're bottom lit, where these areas down below represent clouds and mist. We'll use that mist in here. I'm gonna have to have I want a live workshop with every one of you who need help with that mist, because I want everyone not using it but knowing how to use it, so it's just an option to you, because I find that that's just, it's like, I don't know, whatever. It's like free and easy, I don't know, whatever, dynamics, scenic dynamics or something like that. And it's from that textural standpoint, it's really, people don't think about texture when they're doing cards as much as they're thinking about, okay, I'm adding like a specific color or something like that into it, a piece, or okay, I'm thinking about a technique here with embossing or something like that, which is texture too. But this is like the easiest and fastest thing that I think we can do on just about everything. And it makes a lot of things more effective, or, well, I don't know about effective, but it expands on your ranges of things like really fast. And you can emphasize the things that you want to emphasize even more. So if you like textures or something like that, it will make all of your crisp textures seem even crisper by having something soft next to it. If something's bold, then you can have something that's very subtle next to it. So it's just, I know, it's just like plain contrast, and it's light on dark too. So you're playing the value contrasts off of one another. Okay, so I'm putting some of this dark next to the. I'm not being like super careful with it, because I'm going to come into this with the watercolor anyway, right? And we're going to paint this in there. So I'm just kind of applying this pencil in an area where I want to kind of spread that tone or texture around. I was a lot more careful with it. I don't know, maybe I should be, but I think I was a lot more careful the first time I was doing it. But it was like, the more I do this, it's like, I didn't really have to be that careful, because it just gets dissolved anyway. So, why bother? It's because when I first started using the watercolor pencils too, I was using it like a colored pencil. Okay, now down here, I'm just going to use this to do conventional shading in here. As you see these areas right in here where they're a little bit darker, okay, in between these little sections of the Mystic Bridge stamp, okay, like that, so that the mounds are like lighter on top like that, so you can differentiate the space more. With these shadows like this. And then, like I said, then they get spread around too. Okay, so here we go. Like that. This is probably applying too much, because it gets darker when you add that water to it. But we'll see what we can do here. Okay, so on this bridge, I'm just going to add a little bit to it here, just to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Okay. All right, so that's kind of it. It's really abrupt here, but that's where the water comes in um, to it. And I'm thinking I might have made this area right in here. I'm wondering if I made just too dark. But you can kind of remove this too, right? With the, the watercolor pencils. Let's add a little bit of tone to it too, just for kicks. Let's add a tinge of, let's go with this, a couple different greens maybe up here, just to, just vary it a little bit. Maybe there's some like, you know, like pines up on these tops of these, yeah, these limestone hills too. We'll add some of this down in our grassy area too. This may or may not be the right technique to do, but I just started using these not too long ago. You can see these are brand new, and I don't have like another set of those. So I'm kind of winging it. I feel a little bit more comfortable with these each time I use it. So this is like the, I don't know, what, maybe like the 7th piece that I've done with these. I don't know, it might be 5th. I think I don't know if I bought these watercolor pencils or not, because I did win one time. There was this art store that was opening up near me, and I bought some things from him because he had just moved, to another location. So, I had bought a few things from him, and he goes, "Oh, we're having a raffle here," and I don't know, at some point in time, I don't know if I was contacted by them but I won something, and I know it was a set of something, like pencils, some pencils of some sort. And I don't know if it was these ones or not. All right, so it's something like that. All right. All right. And I might apply more to it later, but let's just go with that. So we have that. It's kind of, things are roughly sculpted out a little bit, but not much in terms of the forms. Just regular water here, and just a small paintbrush, okay? So this watercolor look is real conducive for this type of setting right here, because I've mentioned before, these are like, these designs are inspired by these ink paintings, okay? And they're real washy looking, so that's not something I'm, I do ink washes, but hopefully I can I'm trying to make it look as though these are done in the spirit of that, whatever technique like that. Linda, I think Linda, I saw Linda, I don't know, Linda's on Facebook. I wasn't quite sure how she was doing, though. Hello, Virginia. Good to see you. The workshop went really well, Paula. From what I've heard, I asked everyone, or the people that were there. I said, "Hey, did everyone, get it down?" They said they loved it. So hopefully that's the case. I don't know about everyone. Candy gave up on fog. You shouldn't give up on that. That's what happens too. People do it like for a couple pieces. I don't know, maybe Candy did it on a bunch, but you're just using too much ink. For me, the way that I teach it, it's like impossible to make, mess up something unless you're just applying it too thickly or in too dark of an area. And you have to remember what it represents. It represents light in a light area. So if you apply it in like too dark of an area, it stands out, from contrast. But the way that I use it, it's like literally impossible to mess up anything because it's so light and you can apply it so lightly like this right in here, or like that little bit. And then if you don't like it, you just dab off, as much as you want like that. Okay. But it happens so slowly on mine, because I do it from like, I don't know, most of the time, I might do it faster now, but most of the time I'm applying any given area with like 30 taps or something like that. So in order for it to get just barely visible or just very lightly visible, it's like 30 applications of it. So it's not like, oh my God, it's, nothing jumps up like suddenly. It's not like you're doing, the opposite is like calligraphy or something like that, like brush calligraphy for some masters going like this. And it's like this letter form or something like this. This is like, it's like the opposite in terms of a process. So it would be like the equivalent of like someone applying makeup or something like that, on a foundation, but they're applying just a slathering of it, as opposed to like a light powder and just building things up, like that. If you make it a precarious type of exercise, then it'll become a precarious kind of process like that. But if you just if you extend it out where just barely anything is applying, then you can watch it kind of evolve. But you have to kind of be aware of what's happening though, and not just look at it. You have to look at it in context with the scene. So that's what always happens too. It's kind of one of those things that, like with acrylic paint pen highlighting, okay? When people start doing that, including me, I'm looking at an area that's 1 inch, square or something like that, and you're focusing on this one little tiny area like this, and then you're applying it over here and you're applying it. So that's the same thing with something like this. When you're doing this, you're looking at 1 inch and you're just looking at it in terms of an application, but we're not watching it in terms of the overall context and how it looks overall like that. So you just have to apply a couple little dots. And then when you hold it up and take a look and you apply a little bit more, you don't have to go like this and say, oh, okay, I'm just crossing my fingers hoping that it's going to come out and let me see, you know what I mean? Oh my God, that's like way too much. No, you just do like this, right? And then you look at it, you know what I mean? I mean, you can do it in much more of a bolder kind of, gutsy kind of process, but there's less control of it. So just take control of all of your processes too. It's almost like a philosophy too of awareness, spatial awareness. That's what I'm always telling my kid. Kind of be aware of your space and what you're doing and how it's affecting, something around you, or be aware of what's around you too. So in a card like this, even though we can see this whole thing like this, you're not keeping, you have to be aware of your, what you're doing on here. Like if this is a really dark scene and I'm adding a few little dots down there in white ink, it can be a dramatic change because there's, it's a different texture that you're adding into a piece. And and it really stands out, in terms of contrast, like white against, black or something like that. But if it's white against light, it's less of something. That's why you always start off with your highlights in your lit areas, and then you transition it. So it's this right here that people just don't do. It's darker or lighter to darker like that. And that's what's happening with the inks too. It's darker inks over here, right? and then you have this transition to a lighter one like that. So that's the fundamental thing that I'm doing on everything. It's so if I'm doing something with this, you want it darker, and then you have it lighter like that, right? But it's in those gradual tones. Everyone's used to using like full saturations of everything that they do, though. Out of a pen or something like that, or if you're doing something with any color of ink, right? In theory, you can have it in its full strength, but you can also do it, you know, in those lighter forms. And people aren't used to doing that color right there out of that right there. So just you know, it's you know, it's the importance of the midtones, okay, or something like that, or the range of tones. So think about your 15%, your 5%. With me, I kind of live in those lighter applications. Now they do get dark like this, but my applications of media, though, it's usually just a nice gradual process where I'm building it through those 5% to get to that percentage up there. So in this one, it's a little bit different because I'm applying that black ink. But see, what I'm doing is I'm dragging this down like this, down here like this, so I get that transition from dark to light. But with the white, it's from white to dark. You know, it's you're working in the opposite direction in terms of that value. Okay, and that's what's different too. People aren't used to doing something light too. So it's a different type of process. We're used to doing these additive processes where things are usually getting darker and darker. They're not used to going in with something light and making something lighter that is darker underneath. So it's working in like that opposite way. But if you can master that, though, and it's really easy to do, like I said, you just don't apply too much at any given time. It's the other half of, you know, visuals, okay? It's if you're not employing that, at least in some small degree, like a white paint pen or light paint pens over something darker, then you're kind of just you're depriving yourself of, you know, a big kind of range of your visual kind of your visual expression like that. Now you can do that and everything can look great, but it's not half of it. It's not half of the things, but it's a big portion of it, though. Like I don't add in as much white as I do with colors or something like that. I don't add in as much, you know, acrylic paint pen or something like that than I do with, you know, other colors that I'm adding in there, colored pencils or stuff like that. But I don't know. I'll show you on this one, you know, just the difference some of that can make. And to me, it's a dramatic difference, even in its subtlety sometime. Okay. So on this one right here, you see all these lighter areas like in there. That white's not going to be so dramatic against this area because this area is a 5% gray right here. But if I put some over the top of that up there, that'll be a pretty big difference in contrast. So I'll show it to you right here. This will be a pretty good example of something where it's quite extreme up here, like against this mountain, but very subtle where it's coming up here into that, you know, background mountain up there. Okay, so anyways, this is what I'm doing right here with the watercolors like that. See how kind of washy it is right down here? So I'm doing a lot of this with just water down here and just pulling some of this down like that. So it's creating kind of that, you know, that really super washy look like that. I don't know, this one right here, I kind of lost my waterfall. I don't have command of these, a lot of these things in here. I can use a, you know, like a white acrylic pen up there though. So who mentioned hiding mistakes? Verna did, right? See, Verna and I will use a little white in here, so it's like, oh, you can't even see that waterfall background there anyway. But it's there. But it's just kind of more hidden because we just use the white pigment ink, to cover it up, right? So it's like it those things too. I mean, it really gives me a lot of confidence when I'm doing these pieces too, knowing that I can just cover it up later on. Okay, so this is some down here. This is a little bit too much water down here, and it made it dark right in here. But again, that's where the little white pigment ink can come into play. Okay. All right. So anyways, there's that little bridge down there. Let's come up here a little bit more. Let's do these little mounds. It's a little bit greener than I thought it would be. Those lighter greens really got pretty bright, I think. Let's see. That's something like that. I think it wouldn't be bad to have a little bit of blue in there now too, huh? See this right here, this is what I'm doing. I do this with everything. So remember when I was talking about those transitions of tone? So see this right here, I'm going like this, where it's darker out here, and it's lighter. It tapers off like that. So I'm even doing this with this one right here. So it's darker on the outside and lighter on the interior like that, okay? So just transition those tones, your shadows or your lighting, or in this case it's coloring, but I'm also lighting at the same time through the use of that transitioning application of, that given color. All right, see that right there? Okay, now let's follow up with this, and hopefully I don't just kind of eradicate everything that I've just added in there. And now see, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going like this. I'm trying to do that tapered application of water like that. And we'll do it from this side. It's a little bit too wet here, but yeah, there we go. Okay, so just as I'm tapering the darker application of that, then with the white, I'll taper it opposite. I'll go whiter in here and less over here. So there's more than less with the color. And then when I'm doing with the white, it'll be more in here and then less out that way. So it's inside out. And with the colors, I'm going kind of outside in like that. All right, so let's see here. All right, so see that? Watercolors like that. So I don't even have to do like a 10-year or whatever, 20-year apprenticeship to learn, kind of like Chinese calligraphy with, like brushwork and getting that, calligraphic, whatever thing that they do with the brushwork, where if you get the wrong stroke, it's, you've ruined your piece. Okay, so this is some white paint pen. Let me see if I can get a little bit of this white back into up here. I just thought about it right here too. See, I'm kind of transitioning this too. I'm kind of doing this type of thing. So it's kind of like tapering it like that. Up here, it's a little bit lighter. And then see down here, it's transitioning it like that. So it's a lot of transition talk here in this video. If any of you want to have a Zoom fog seminar, email me and we'll schedule a time, and you will come away with you'll come away with the name of the seminar is Fog is Your Friend. What you'd do is you would just have, you know, a couple scenes or something like that, and just make sure that you've retained. It doesn't matter what scenes they are, okay, but you just want to retain some lighter areas like that, and then have a 100% cotton ball and a white pigment ink pad, and we'll do a live zoom, and then I'll you know, we'll get you everyone up and running with that. Well, you'll never have to you'll never have to think about the technique again. Okay, this is a colored pencil right here. I'm not going to come into this bridge. This is like too detailed of an area on these little individual bricks. So I'm just doing this with a just a colored pencil right here, and I'm just toning in like the bottom side of these bricks in the bridge, the stones. All right, so it looks like that. Okay, and now I don't know. I need some kind of focal point in this, or like some additional color. But let's just do a little bit of that white pigment ink. Okay. So what I had people do in the people over in this beginning workshop did that fogging with me. So I showed them where, you know, when you're going with your cotton ball and you're inking up. Now, most people don't use white pigment ink too, so they were using a brand new pad, okay? So when they're inking up like this, I told them, see how frayed it looks like that? Don't use that either. So you smash it down like this, okay? And then I had them take a piece of paper like this just to see how much they were applying. So see this right here? This is, I'm not doing like a delicate application, but you see, you can barely see it there, right? But that's what you want, okay? Most people that do it, though, they're coming into it, you know, like that, with that much right there. And that's the problem, okay? You know, now, I mean, I could do it like that. You know, if I have like a sopping wet, you know, piece like this, and I'm doing it on something like this, and I just know to start in from the lightest areas, okay? Because you can't see anything right here, all right? But then you just tap it in here, and then see, I'm slowly coming up into my lighter areas. But then I do a tap like that, and I look, tap and look, okay? Because I want to see. So I don't know if you can see the difference between that mountain and that one now, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm trying to push my transition. So I tried to do it with just with the watercolor inks, okay? But you know, it came out okay this time. The earlier ones that I did when I was first learning this watercolor pencil technique, it was a lot more clunky, okay? But let's look at it right in here. Let's say there's all these clouds behind there. Hopefully it already looks like that, but look at this now. See, if I add some of this down here, which 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 7 taps right there. And you really can't see anything, right? I can see it right here. It's just slowly starting to change it a little bit. But see that right there? Now we have this illumination coming over the top. So this right here looked like that before, okay? Now let's do it with this one, okay? Or I'm doing this with all of them. So it kind of, what you're doing is we're putting we're kind of defining these areas in here as like clouds in the background, right? But see, doing this right here, what you've done is you've created, light is now kind of this, the lighting is kind of this living thing where it's like moving over here, and it's moving. Have you ever seen like clouds coming over the top of like a mountain or anything like that? It's like a living creature or something like that. But what you're doing is now by doing something like this right here. Can you see the difference like that from a tactile standpoint? Let's do it on some of these trees right here, okay? See, like that? And that's all you really need. But I mean, there's really little you can do to kind of like destroy something or ruin it, right? See, if I'm going like this, watch this. I'm going to go like with 100 taps. I don't know, not 100, but I'm just going to go like a lot. And I put like way too much in here, okay? But I mean, there, it doesn't look bad because I'm doing it in a very light area. Okay, now let's just transition this a little bit more like this. But what you're doing is you're kind of wrapping, when you're doing something like this, okay, you're wrapping light around objects. So you're enveloping these things in this soft light. So from a textural standpoint, just that little bit right there, you don't have to do it over everything either. But if you just have this over a couple pieces like that, what you're doing is you're enveloping objects in soft light and, you know, people like being hugged with soft light. Okay, let's put some of it down here too. You know, people like, illumination or, you know, something like that. Or if you're walking around during sunset or something like that, where the sediment in the air becomes illuminated, and then you become aware of this golden light that you're in. It just feels good. So what you're doing is you're just kind of adding in, I mean, the scenes can be fine without this, but you're adding in that textural element, tactile element into these pieces now. So suddenly, instead of just involving visuals, okay, this is now, it's a little bit more tactile, and it's a little bit more, there's more touch to it, you know what I mean? So you're just dipping into another sense a little bit stronger when you do this, and this is just the easiest way to do it for me. It puts things, what you're doing is you're putting something into the air that's in between these objects, okay? You're being made aware of the space in between objects, which is that, you know, moisture, something like that. One of these days I'm going to get like some, I don't know, like a warm pigment ink, and I'm going to do a sunset scene, but it's going to have more of like, you know, instead of white light, it's going to be more of a warm light. And I think that would be really cool. Okay, but anyways, there's that, like that. So hopefully that, you know, you can see it. I mean, if people didn't see me apply that white pigment ink, they wouldn't know that it was in there. They wouldn't even think about that up in there. They would think that you stamped it out in that, you know, lighter tone. But with, you know, and which is something you can do too, just by wiping off the, you know, the stamp and then stamping it out lighter inherently. But a lot of times I don't know where I want my things to be lighter, so I just do it with this right here, okay? Now you can get, you know, a lot of the times you can get it, you know, a lot of your whole scene just with like one inking like this too. But just apply it nice and slowly and methodically, and it's, you know, it's really, really hard for anything to go wrong. But if you're applying it in a really dark area, like something like this, dark areas like this, I won't apply any of it because there's no light in that area. But see, that's right here where it really stands out a lot more. Or you go like this, right? And actually, that doesn't look too bad, but, you know, just remove it. Well, sometimes too, you know, you can even remove it. If you're doing this on glossy cardstock, even after it dries, before you heat set it, if you don't like it, you just dab it right off or wipe it right off and it comes right off. The glossy though, not the matte, okay? I'm not affiliated with white pigment ink. Let's see. Jeannie, if fog is too difficult for you, your scenes get really dark too. But you have a lot of range, but you would just use it more minimally. Jeannie's like a stamp expressionist with her media, and you have to retain white too. Like I said, if you're doing like fog with white ink, then you need to retain white light in the scene like that. Let's see. Hello to Bonnie. Hello, Caroline. Hello to anyone else that might be checking out the live here too. That checking it out in the background. You know, you're not a commenter, which is me a lot of times when I'm watching live streams too. At the bottom, let's see. Okay, let's see. Good tip with the fog. I see the difference. If you're heavy, okay, now see, Jeannie made a good comment right here. She says, I've been too heavy-handed with my fog. Okay. If anyone is ever too heavy-handed with fog, be as heavy-handed with this as you want. But the more heavy-handed you are, just remove more of it. And then if you want to go heavy-handed, but a lot of times people are heavy-handed because, again, when you start applying it down here, if you're applying it in the light areas, you can't see it. So that's when people think, I need to go heavier. So it's like, what happens is they go like this, you know, oh my, I can't see anything. Nothing's happening. And then they go like that. You know what I mean? It's just a natural reaction because you're used to seeing things happen immediately with this. But like I said, imagine it's just like you're applying like a light makeup on something. And, you know, as far as the application process and touch, I always say just apply. Imagine you're taking this and it was some kind of makeup for, you know, like a kid that's going out for trick-or-treating, you know what I mean? And you're going to be applying that on their face. That's the touch that you kind of want to, or pressure that you want to apply it with. Okay. And imagine it's like a toddler age kid, you know what I mean? No one's going to be, you know, too heavy-handed on like a child's face, right? You're not going to be applying it like super hard, you know, so everyone has it within them to go lighter, you know. And I don't know, you know, saying, Kevin, I just did that and I made some kid cry. But that's it. Very light touches on things. Very light applications of media where you can barely see it often cause us to use harder pressure. But don't use harder pressure. Just get your statement that you're going after with repetition more. So try the repetition. I mean, this takes like literally 30 seconds to learn. But if people don't do it, if they keep doing it in the same way, and I know it happens because I've done it in live workshops, and it's exactly the same thing every time. It's just we're not used to seeing like a really, really faint version of some ink or media, you know, at first. So that's why when I'm doing things like inking up too, you know, with black or something like that, if I'm building up tone here, let me get a new piece of this right here. So if I'm applying black into something, okay, you know, I might be doing this with black ink. That's like a 5% gray right there, right? So if I want like a really light application of that in here, see, I'm just doing it through repetition like this. Okay. Okay, but if someone saw that tone of it and I said, hey, I use black ink, what they would do, if they couldn't see me do that, okay, they would take this black ink. I'm not going to do it on here, but they would go like this, and it would be like super dark, right, you know, with, you know, a couple taps or something like that, or, you know, whatever applicator they happen to be using. So just, you know, I don't know, expand out the process, and it doesn't make it, it makes it faster actually to do it that way. Because we're not having to undo anything. Because if you expand, you know, your process where it takes more repetition to get something down, you know, we're not talking a lot of repetition, but I tend to not have to undo things or do repair work on it if I just take a little bit more time with the initial application. That's what I find. Now I can't always do that because I'm, sometimes I'm trying new techniques in media, and, just, I don't know, you got to be more gutsy, going into it. But after I kind of learned something like with the watercolored pencils, okay, then, I'm a little bit freer in terms of my application of it, where I don't have to, extend out the process. I'm still learning that one though, but that's what I would do with the white pigment ink though. You just make it a slower process until you're real comfortable with it, and it doesn't take too long. But again, I know what people do though, and it's completely understandable because most other types of media applications, we can see what we're doing almost immediately after that first application of it, touch with it to the paper. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of I like that foreground down there like that. So I'm going to add in this bamboo branch in here, like we're standing underneath some bamboo stalks or something like that. That didn't apply really well over that white pigment ink, but it just kind of looks like that foreground's in a little bit of a fog or mist. Okay, and let's go opposite side. My background waterfall looks okay now because after that white paint pen, but otherwise, if I didn't like it, I would just cover it up like that. It's the great scenic stamping, kind of benefit slash joke is that if you don't like something in scenic stamping, you just cover it up with a branch or a tree. Okay, so I'm just framing this off a little bit. I should probably go in there a little bit more than here. Let's go in a little bit more here. Okay, so kind of framing things off a little bit like so. Sometimes Jeannie feels like she's in a fog when stamping. Grab some of that around you then and put it on the paper. Let's see. Oh, let me see. I'm scrolling down the thing. Someone said so. If you wanted to have thin lines across the moon, would you change what you are using to apply it with? You can change, yeah, you can use whatever applicators but the most conducive for your application of it. I use small Q-tips a lot for some smaller kind of applications of pigment ink or just media in general. I used to apply it too with sponges, like with the color box stylus tools, the sponge tips. Okay, Verna asked, do you ever sit down and freehand draw a scene with no stamping? Not for a while, Verna. I used to go, no, see, I used to do a lot of hiking, and I started taking out my sketchbook with me, and I would do a little sketch of, for where I got to, and I would do something like that. But I don't just sit around and just draw a scene out or something like that. It was more in the field kind of studies or something like that, just with a pen. Okay, Debbie uses a sponge and lightly stroke the ink across the moon. Sounds like a good technique. Yeah, I don't know what that so was doing, unless they're trying to get something out. These little sponges. Oh, there's little sponges out there too, And some people, okay, so some people liked, in terms of an applicator, those little sponges that were more rounded. You know what I mean? They don't have like a edge on the side. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's like a moon, or I don't know, not a moon shape, but they're like they're rounded on the top, so no edges. But for me, yeah, the color box stylus tools, I mean, they had an edge, but I would just dab in there. The one thing that was good about that one is I can go with a little bit more textures too sometime. You don't always have to go with this like super like invisible edge mist or something like that. You can have like a little bit of a thicker application in here, like I don't know, maybe so when I'm doing this too, with your inks, like I mean, about the torn paper towel technique too, with these types of things too, right? I mean, this is like something that I've done on a lot of the foil things too. So this might be an exercise too. If anyone's having kind of troubles with white pigment ink, so this is how you do, or how I do, like clouds that are a little bit more kind of amorphic and free form. Okay, so you've seen this technique done. They've been doing it for years to create kind of mountains in the background, but you're doing it on a white piece of paper, and this is like, whatever color ink, black ink or something like that, right? But this is just the opposite, where it's like a cloud instead, like that, right? So you want this to kind of transition down here a bit. So you add more of it up top like that. And then what I do is I come into it like this, and I'm going above that paper towel stenciled area like this. But see, now if I was coming into it too heavy, that wouldn't have that glow in there, right? Because it would be too thick. You can see this is just like standard foil, so it's removing that. But you come in here like that. And so this is like a perfect little exercise for you. If you need to kind of exercise, kind of a touch or something like that, then like a piece of foil is like a perfect way to do it, because, you can spray seal this and set it, and then you can use it for your pieces, your scenes or something like that, or whatever, your word stamps, whatever. Or you can just take this now and you can just wipe it right off. But you see that cloud in here? So see how I'm just transitioning this freehand down here? I'm getting this lighter application of it down here. And that's how you build up your clouds. So let's come down here now and do this and go on the edge like this. So you're going from thicker and lighter to thinner down here and darker, because there's just less white pigment ink on there, okay? So that's your cloud, your cloud little exercise like that you can do. Like that. You can just keep building it up, I don't know, that's a little bit pointy like that for a cloud, but here, let me just kind of blend that out a little bit. But see how these clouds look like that? But see how it's transitioning like that and down here? And that's the same type of thing that's going on in here. Not with a mass, but it's going from a thicker application to a thinner one. It's a little bit thicker right here. And then when it moves up in here, it's like this opposite direction. It's thicker down here and thinner up there where it moves into that darker area like so. Let's see right here. What is this? This is dye-based ink. Oops. I got a big dot. Okay, now see right here? This is the StaysOn. I don't know. It's leaking water right here. So I got a big problem right here, right? That's what that dye, that water dripped on here. And even if I color this whole thing, that might still be there. But if I don't like it, I'm just going to put some white pigment ink across there, and that solves that area right there. So that being said, here, let's try to do something with this one. This is the Mystic Bridge slash white pigment ink live stream, I guess. All right, let's see here. This is like a completely just non-coated matte cardstock. All right, I did something with my pens the other day, and I can't even tell now which one was which. This one's either, I should have wrote it on the back. Yeah, okay, this one's a colored pencil. Okay, I'm not going to look for it, but see, here's the colored pencil right here, but do you see where I applied the white pigment ink back here? Right in here, it's mistier, so a little bit of white pigment ink right up here, and then right down here. I'm not a good, colored pencil practitioner because I've barely done white pigment ink application. I mean, colored pencil scenes before. Okay, and that's the same thing with. Okay, this is the StaysOn one. Darn it. Okay, so I can't use the alcohol pen, so let's go with the dye-based ink coloring on this one. Let's try to make this scene a little bit more colorful here. But the white pigment ink, I don't know. To me, that white pigment ink, even if you're not really experienced at certain types of media, okay, I feel that I can come up with a pretty decent looking piece just because I'm applying this at the end of all of it. So watercolor pencils, been doing that for like, I don't know. At this point in time, I probably used them like 5 times in my life. And, not good at it, or colored pencils, okay? But I know how to use this white pigment ink over other things. And if I can just use that over the top of like all these different media, it kind of, it kind of saves me with all of it. Oops. Now see that right here, that's like way too green, right? This is matte cardstock right here with the StaysOn, okay? And just from that horrific kind of application right there, I'll show you what the white pigment ink will do on this one. If I didn't use that white pigment ink over my scenes like that, and I did something like that, this scene would already look horrifying to me. Okay, and I don't know. We'll see how this comes out. Okay, so I haven't used like matte paper either. Okay, uncoated matte until like a few days ago. Well, let's see what I can come up with here. Or we'll see how much damage I do before I use the white pigment ink over the top of it. And let's see how this goes. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you know what I was thinking? Back in the live streams, I don't know, it might be a half a year, but we were getting like spammed occasionally. And, I mean, it's not like Stampscapes channels, got a huge number of viewers. So I'm thinking, what the heck? They got that scrolling thing where they're typing out the same thing all the time. But I was thinking, man, we haven't had that in a long, long time. But they're usually spamming with like a link in there, aren't they, or something like that? Okay, so I can't block because I'm not on YouTube right now. I'm in this other program that allows me to do like the split screen here and stuff. So if any of you can like, I thought you guys can report or something like that. I thought if a couple people just type, like report, it might know, okay, this is like some troll or something like this. I think that's what people have done in the past. So I'm viewing like this, the comment board here in this other program that I'm using to stream here. Okay, so this is just some summer sky here. And I am using this in this grassy area as well. We'll have these, we'll put some blossoms in these trees. So this is just your first color, but look at this thing right here. It's like, what do you call it? It's like it looks like it's like a sinkhole, right? All right, so that is the summer sky light blue. And what I'm just trying to do here, amongst other things, is I want to saturate this paper a little bit more so that hopefully it makes some of these other tones that I apply in here easier to blend in, because it's easier to blend in when the paper is a little bit wet like that. The darker tones, I should say, that I'll get to. Okay, so, now here's what I'm doing here too. I'm retaining some areas of white for my lighting in here, okay? But again, that's the thing that makes it the ability to use the white pigment ink so much easier to do. Now, this one right here, there was no white area on here because it's just blue, foil right here. But this is kind of the thing. You're creating your lighting with the white ink on this one, okay? You can see what that's just scraped off right there. So this will just come right off right here, until you spray seal it. So it's like a perfect little kind of exercise to practice that on. But if you like your clouds, and then you do a little scene over the top of it or something like that, then you just spray seal it with like a Krylon or something like that. All right, so let's see. Oh, by the way, on this one, I find, if you haven't seen my scenes before, you put a little bit of that gold kind of perimeter right here, and then like a piece of black glossier or something like that around it. And it looks real kind of, that like a framed, Asian print type of thing, looking thing. So it's like, oh my God, I have another use for all that, gold gold foil cardstock that I have. All right, so there is the Memento Bahama Blue. Let's go to the Danube here. Okay. Now see that bridge is just too, small to me to do any coloring with something like this. So that's what I'm just gonna color with this. Get some colored pencils or something like that. That little area right there is a real problem with that water stain. I don't know what it was. It might have been some of that watercolor paint or something like this. I just have this thing kind of sitting there, so actually I should move that out of my way. All right, so let's see. Let's go with well. All right, so this is the color that I usually use to mellow things out a little bit more, but on this matte paper, I don't know. This could look really funky. And I use it in my grassy areas, okay. Okay, so this is what I do. I just wipe it off. So anytime you switch up to a new color or a different medium that you're not really quite sure about how it'll look, then you just apply a really light value of it. So I'm applying like a 10% or a 5% value of it right in this area to see if I like it or not, or to see if it's working or not. And if you like it, then you can always add more. And that's just like with any medium. It doesn't have to be like a big type of commitment to any given application of any media that you're working with. You can just do a very light version of it and then just build it up accordingly. So I don't necessarily like it here, but I don't mind it as kind of like a base layer for other colors to come. Okay. All right, let's see here. Let's just grab some different colored pencils. So these are the colored pencils. These aren't the watercolor pencils on here. I guess we could do, I don't want to do watercolor pencils on there. I'm too, I should practice with that sometime though. See, I can really manipulate and move around these watercolor pencils on the satiny finish semi-gloss, but on this matte uncoated, anything I do is just going to get soaked in like instantly, So for me, that wouldn't be a really great idea. not with that media, right now at least. To not practiced, I'm a beginner with those with that media, so it would make it much more of a like instantaneous type of application of something with that I can't really manipulate too much. And same thing on this one too, the matte paper. I'm being a little bit more careful with the application of, the white pigment ink, because it'll grab this surface and soak into it much faster. The other ones, you can kind of apply it and you can wipe off, as much as you want, really, before it dries, and it doesn't dry instantly. So, there's plenty of time to manipulate it, to remove it, whatever you want to do. Okay, so on this one right here, I'm just kind of developing my shadows a little bit more. Maybe I should do that on here too with some colored pencils. Just get a little bit of slightly brighter tone in these areas if we want to. Like that. Okay, here's a warmer green. Work your warmer, brighter tones from your shadow areas first like this, and then come up into those like that. Okay, all right. So this is kind of smoothing things out quite a bit. And let's go in with some brown. It's kind of the same brown-ish tinge that that other ink was. Okay. There's that little sinkhole or like vortex. I like to say, Caroline, do you heat set your scenes with glossy paper or do you apply Krylon spray? Do you skip that when using matte paper? It depends, Caroline. If I feel that, like this one right here, this is just colored pencils, okay? And this is on just straight matte paper. It's the same matte paper as this one. I don't think this is going to change very much with a spray sealant, okay? You know, it's pretty much on here. It's not going to get wiped off or anything like that. So in this case, I don't know. I might spray or I might not. If I don't need to spray something, I don't usually though. Okay, and I just keep it that way. Okay, now, but that being said, with a lot of like glossy scenes like this, or not glossy, this is matte here, but if I'm doing a glossy cardstock scene, like this one, okay, and sometimes with certain brands of inks, like Mementos dry duller than they look when they've been applied. Now this one's not looking too bad, but see this one right here would probably benefit from a spray sealant, okay? It'll look, the colors will look deeper, brighter, and you know, they'll look more saturated, okay? So in that case, it would benefit from a spraying, so I would do that. But those other types of media surface combinations that won't benefit at all, I don't really bother doing that. But now as far as heat setting goes, like I don't really need to heat set most things. Like this one right here, I didn't need to heat set. This watercolor piece like this. Now sometimes I'm playing around with things and things look too textural from a, you know, the white pigment ink on there, the watercolor things, and if I'm using alcohol pens, sometimes you can see the different textures of all that different type of media on there, where a spray sealant, light coating over the top of it, will unify all of those different textures. I'm not talking about visual textures in terms of soft and dark, but sometimes things are like shinier than others, like alcohol inks, and they don't match up with the dye-based ink textures, where it can be almost distracting, especially in certain light. Then kind of a uniform application of something over the top of it, you know, will lessen that amount of, you know, contrasting surface textures, okay? So sometimes I'll do that in that case. And specifically, that what I'm thinking about very specifically are alcohol inks and dye-based inks. You know, sometimes you can see that alcohol ink within those. You know, I'll hit these areas in the shadows with alcohol inks to make them brighter or something like that. and that helps with the that that shininess of the alcohol inks against the dye-based inks. So in other words, there's not really a set thing. It depends on the scene too. Okay, now I mean one of those things. I mean, if I'm making a card for, if I'm making a card for a little kid too, okay, and it's something that I'm trying to do where it's, there's going to be a lot of hopefully they're gonna want to touch it. I might put some glow in the dark stars on there, and stuff like that, and glitter, and kind of make it a little bit more loud and tactile for a kid. I'll spray it just because I know it's going to be handled more than probably than if I send a card out to a fellow rubber stamper or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. Because if I send it out to a stamper, I know that a stamper's not going to grant the thing and do this across it. So something like that. So so that comes into play as well. But just in general, I spray when I absolutely think it'll benefit, and I don't if I don't think it'll benefit, because sometimes I think the spray will kind of change the kind of the inherent nature of it. And if I like that inherent nature as is, I don't do anything. Okay, so what I'm specifically thinking about too is like photo stamping, where I do like photo stamping and colored pencil over the top of it. I like that look as is, where if I spray it, I think it'll look, like my colored pencil work and stuff like that. It won't look as soft if I throw like a glossy sheen across the top of it, because I like some instances where something's really shiny like this, and I like it contrasted against like some like really soft applications of colored pencil touches on there like that, where I don't necessarily want that shiny. Then I won't do it. And plus the colored pencils on top of the white pigment ink, it sticks perfectly well, so I don't get any real benefit from the the spray sealant sealing media down. It already sticks to the surface just fine. So those are ones that I never spray. I could, you could do it with you could spray it with a glossy, or you can spray it with spray fixative or something like that. But I just don't think it needs it, so I just don't. All right, so here's some colored pencils in here. It's fixing that that initial kind of blob of green up there, right? Going a little bit deeper here. The green. This almost looks like moonlight now instead of maybe sunlight or something like that. Okay, your new image design looks like a bridge. You might see in the English. Perfect, Horsey girl. Yeah. I wanted this bridge to, I made it to go with this mystic, series like that. So, but I purposely didn't, the trees are kind of not super defined. So I wanted to be able to be, applicable to any, any setting or location. All right, so this is a little bit more of an earthy green. It's looking a little bit too kind of, I don't know, whatever. It looks like one of those glow in the dark greens or something like this. So I'm just trying to mellow it out with some earthy tones in here. And that's why I was using the brown in there. Oftentimes when I just use greens in some area, it kind of glows too. It's too hot of a green. It's too intense. So that's where you apply the browns on top of your green tones. A lot of the distress inks The early, I don't know, distress inks are everything nowadays. They're like really bright colors too, and whatever. But like a lot of those kind of those brownish tones within your green color scheme work really great if we're talking about just dye based inks. So this is kind of this equivalent tone right here. I don't know, what is this? Burnt ochre. Okay. So let's apply some of this into this area. Putting some on the bridge too there. And then here's some of these trunks of these trees. I'll color, and then I'll also highlight as well. All right. This is a dark green. So I'm really kind of working on those shadows in there. This scene has become a lot darker than what I initially anticipated. But I think what I'm doing here, when I think I'm probably practicing my colored pencil blending, you know, transitioning, whatever technique. And one of the things is too, I've been typically using colored pencils on my semi-gloss cardstocks, okay? And I just can't build up the same amount of colored pencil layering on that type of paper because it's, you know, it's fairly smooth. You can get some of it done on there, but after you get to like that third or fourth layer, because the paper is not really textured at all, you start getting kind of that super saturation on there. So I can't, you know. So this is actually kind of fun here for me. Just building up more tone. All right, so here's a little bit of a pinkish tinge right here. We'll put a little bit in that horizon up there too, and we'll have it across some of that water like that. I don't know if you can see that little tinge of pink in there. It complements that grass a little bit. Okay, so I think the black is going to be the thing that's coming to the rescue, and white later on in here. So here's black. You know what this almost looks like to me? It almost looks like this is this little area underneath the bridge and that horizon. That looks like a moonrise or something like that. Just the bottom of that, the opening there. It's almost like a, or just something on the horizon. You know, you're like your light source, like a setting or a rising moon is that area right there. Let's use a little bit of this black colored pencil up here too, on some of these mountains here. Okay, let's see. Do you mount your card on silver glossy paper? Oh, this one right here? Yeah. This one's a little bit of white right here, and then I put the silver around it like that. I don't know, I just started using the silver a lot to mount cards on. Just, I don't know. I was doing a lot of dark glossy as a frame. And then, I don't know, like this one would probably match a little bit better with a black matte just to match the matte of this, but I thought, let's put a little bit more bling into it. You know what I mean? With the frame like this. So I don't know. I kind of like it with the silver like that. Do you prefer alcohol markers over colored pencils? No, I don't know. I can't say that I prefer like anything over anything else. If you ask me that, if you ask me that 4 years ago to 30 years ago, well, not 30. Well, I don't know. I had my alcohol pens back then, but it would have been alcohol just because I haven't worked with the colored pencils. But I don't know. It's one of those things. You know, everything's everything's a little bit more uncertain these days with me, with media, because I've been experimenting with so much more stuff. Now, if you ask me, do I prefer some sort of media with a surface, I'll probably have something more definitive like that. Hey, do you prefer alcohol markers on glossy or matte paper more, or semi-gloss? There might be an answer, for something like that. Although I'm kind of wondering that now myself with that one, but I might have, different combination preferences at this point in time. Ginger just blocked them. We just missed the so person. Hello, Laura D. Thanks for joining in. This is the Mystic Bridge with stamped in StazOn on matte cardstock, and then we just finished. Well, not just. 3 hours ago, we finished this piece right here. Not 3 hours, I'm joking. This is watercolor pencils on a semi-gloss with the solvent ink StazOn. I did the 2 StazOns right here. Okay, I didn't do any dye-based ink pieces today yet. But, yeah. Okay, so here's the white paint pen. The white paint pen's going to help too. The white paint pen helped me a lot too with my pieces. Yeah, let's see here. I need to get more white paint pens. I've been using my Artistro set pens, and it comes with 2 white, but I think this is running out of ink. Nope, it's still going. Okay, so this right here, ask me if I prefer the acrylic pens on matte or glossy more. And I'll have an answer for you on that one, I think. The matte paper here really absorbs my my acrylic paint here really fast. So when I apply this down, it dries darker on glossy paper, but it really dries a lot, quite a bit darker on matte, because this acrylic paint is getting soaked into the paper. So you can see it kind of right here on those top surfaces right up here of these mounds right now, but when it dries, or when it sits on there a little bit, it won't be as visible. And it would be my preference to not have to go back in and reapply it to, to build it up to get a little bit lighter. So, yeah. So that's, I don't know, whatever, not desirable. It's kind of okay in, some ways, because it blends in with the background and harmonizes with the background a little bit more. But, sometimes when I'm applying this, and I can see what it's going to look like, after I apply it, I kind of want it to, I get it to where I want it. But then sometimes, like I said, when it dries, you don't have it anymore. And then, yeah, I mean, you can put another layer on there and it gets built up a little bit more. But that's if you really want to spend, you know, more time with it at that point in time. So this is the white paint pen, so I'm doing it from the top down because it's being, you know, this is where my source of light is kind of coming from. And I'm not going to apply too much of it down here, but you can get your specular light. It's that little shimmering light off the surface of your water by applying this. And you have to apply it in an area where it's going to show up. So it's just like the white pigment ink, okay, that we're applying like as fog. You know, it's only going to show up in an area that is light, darker than it, you know, because we're working with light here, you know, white in this case. So you apply it where light meets darker than white, and then you transition it in there. So what I'm doing right here is we're doing, you know, going back to that whole idea of transitions. So let's imagine this is the lighter area right here. So I'm applying some of it like this. Okay, and then when it moves into these darker areas like this, I taper it off more. I put more like space in between those dots like that, okay? So you're going heavier in here, and then as you move out here, you just, you know, kind of use less highlighting. Because in theory, you know, what you have is a sparkling light where light is hitting it. So in the shadows, we're saying that there's not a lot of light in there, so you wouldn't have a lot of those reflections. So add your light into the light for the most part. All right, here's some of these trees. I'm just kind of highlighting some of my trees right here. I'm just scribbling it around on here because I'm applying this on top of like wax of those colored pencils. So I kind of have to scribble it around for it to even show. It might even be better just take some, you know, bleed-proof white on a brush and apply it in here, or just, you know, watercolor paint. I don't know, over the top of this colored pencil, I'm saying, because sometimes it's hard to use this on top of colored pencils because it's so slippery, and then you start getting some of that colored pencil into the tip there and it starts clogging it. All right, so I need a focal point for this scene. I can have like a... Who said that about the English countryside? This guy's like doing, we got a nice fly fisherman in the English countryside here. Okay, I'm wiping off the bottom of this because I think this is going to go down into the this rock right here a little bit. So let's go like, yeah, I'm gonna put this character over here to the left side of the page because they're, you know, their rod is going that way. So. Okay, so that from a compositional standpoint, that really changed the composition, didn't it? Okay, you ready for your white pigment ink lesson here? Everyone grab their white pigment ink and cotton ball at home. Have a illuminated little area. Okay, let's see. Posca pen is more opaque. Got it. I gotta try some of those. The Poscas come in 0.7 millimeter. Would the soft pastels work better soft pastel work better for that on matte paper? I don't know. But I know the soft pastels look great. So the soft pastels, pan pastels, colored pencils, your media that any media that benefits from any kind of tooth to the surface, you know, is always best. But we're doing rubber stamping too, so having a smooth surface for your impressions is also a big factor. So, I mean, I've seen scenes where people do, like one person does, like on the Facebook group. I think they're in the Netherlands. I don't know where they live, but like a lot of their pieces are like on highly textured papers, watercolor papers. I think linens. Okay, now I'm adding this little mist or whatever, like at the base of them. Do you see what it did with that character right there? See, this is the character right here, but look at that as they're standing in that mist. I don't know. I think it makes it just a few little taps like that. Now, if that's all you did, I mean, that would be fine. But it took like, I don't know, it takes like a couple seconds to do that. And now they're kind of enveloped in the light. Um, you know, um, it's like go into the light. We were saying that the other day and seeing if people knew Poltergeist here. There's probably been other movies, but let's put it all on the side of this here too. Okay, so I'm starting it in the lighter areas. Okay, so see, there's nothing that I can see at all here, right? Nothing. I'm still doing it, and I'm coming into that darker area right there. See that right there? So now I can kind of see it a little bit. I'm talking about the white pigment ink. And now I'm just applying a little bit. Still barely anything, really. Okay, here, I'll do it on this left side, so you can do a little comparison contrast here. That's a little bit too much here. Okay, like that. Okay, do you see that difference right here and that side? I mean, you can do it on one side too if you want to a little contrast it. But see that lighting right there? It got rid of like that harsh kind of edge too, a little bit like that. But look at it. Doesn't it look like that light is glowing here now? All right. So let's just show you what this looks like too. I'll put it more around, that opening underneath the bridge like this. See, now I've muted that right there. So now, I mean, it looked fine before, but now here is this kind of more, it's more of like a magical light. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more evocative this way too, I think. Than before. It's just because that, it looks more tactile too. Okay, so here's this little area down here with that big kind of water stained blob. So let's just get rid of that here, like that, okay? You can still see it. We can put like something over the top of it, but this is kind of, it's getting rid of it here a little bit. Here's this rock right here. And let's put a little bit of that lighting across that now. So see, this lighting is affecting that there. You can put it across like this. So it's a little bit more of a, I don't know, it's a little bit more of a kind of a seductive light. I don't know if you agree. Some people you might like, hey, Kevin, I liked it better before, and that's perfectly okay. It'll affect your grade, but but here's this tree now. Some of it's in the light, some of it isn't. Man, it's too much here. I'll wipe some of it off like that. Okay. See this right here? Kind of concentrating a little bit more because as it dries, it gets a little darker. So, you just kind of have to build it up to the point where you want it. And if you're going to spray seal this too, you lose a lot of the opacity it's translucent, but it's here's transparent and here's opaque. It might look like this right here, but then as it dries, it starts moving towards transparency again. So you have to build it up again a little bit, and get it to where you want it. And then sometimes when you spray seal it, it's like knocked it down towards transparency again. Then you can do another layer right over the top of the spray sealant, and then you spray seal over that. So you have the white pigment ink is in between a couple layers of the sealant, okay? I mean, I don't do that. I just spray seal really lightly, just like, I don't do multiple sprays or something like that, but you could, but anyway, so you see the difference between that white pigment ink in here and not, like I said, some people might not like it, someone mentioned in another video, hey, that white pigment ink, I hated it. It makes me want to puke. I'm just joking. No one said that. I've been doing those little bluebell meadow areas, so there's a little bit of blue in here. Let's add a little of this to the, this meadowy area. It looks like spring to me. We'll do a fog thing like that. Just a little. We'll do a Zoom session, and if people have some, pieces, like I said, it'd be good to know, learn. And that the thing about the so if we did something on the foil too, the thing about the foil is you need the brilliance ink. Okay. If you're doing this foggy type of thing on anything else, it's fine with the the hero hues, I don't know, Stampin' Up. It's got some kind of like a white pigment ink too, don't they? I don't know, whatever brand you want, you can use. If you're doing something like like I said, on the foils though, the brilliance ink is the way to go with that, because that can dry on non-porous surfaces, okay? But, okay, now what I did with the brilliance on here, you could have done with the hero hues too. Or, or anything. Every ink, pigment ink out there, that's out there, I think they're all oil-based, okay? The brilliance is the one that's water-based and fast drying, okay? But I used, the color box Frost White by Clear Snap for years, okay, because it dried slower and I can spread it out a little bit more. The brilliance ink I didn't use brilliance back then. I started using brilliance because I started doing things on foils and stuff, and it'll dry on there. And I just got used to using brilliance. And then the brilliance is ones that you can use on your printable holographic cardstocks and other things. But these types of inks right here don't have a reputation for not being able to dry on things like glossy cardstock and, certain less than porous surfaces. But when you're just doing like a thin layer like that, it dries just fine, and then you can spray seal it. All right, so you don't need to, specialty pigment inks. But I always recommend to people, I always think that having like a white and black brilliance pad is always a good way to go, because even if you decide at some point in time, hey, I'd like to try out my, I'd like to use, do some of these techniques on foils or vinyl cards, vinyl sticker papers, printable vinyl sticker papers, stuff like that. You can always do it with the brilliance. And I just don't know how long brilliance is going to be around. I always worry that Sick and Echo is going to discontinue them, and there isn't a single thing else out there that's like it. It's the only thing, it's the only chemistry of that type. And, you know, if that type of thing's gone, no one's going to come up with another, water-based pigment ink. I wouldn't think, okay? All right, so anyways, I'm putting some little kind of floral types of elements. You probably can't even see it, but see, some of this pink is down here like in that. And so if you add this little element up into your other areas of your scene, it just kind of creates a little bit more of a, color harmony within your piece like that. So anyways, so that is the dye colored pencil acrylic paint pen white brilliance. It wasn't, I don't know. I tend to think of this as like a simple process right here, which it is, but it just, I don't know, there was multiple layers within this piece. I should stamp out a couple little like fish swimming around in here. I have that little salmon. I can stamp them really light, like here in the shadows or shallows, like right in here. I think that'd be kind of cool. So that is that. We have this other piece right here, kind of real minimal, although we added more color into this one with the watercolor pens. And then I will come back in these ones and finish off these other stamp sketches in here with some other media. So we'll kind of experiment around a little bit with this piece right here. So I did want to add in a little bit more color with this one, although I do think this one would look really great just minimally, just when grayscale like this down here, like a true, like a ink wash style, painting, which would look pretty cool. This one almost, I need another little focal point on this one too. Maybe a little bird or something like this, or maybe some birds flying right up here, something like this. I noticed in those Chinese paintings, there's often like a flock of birds somewhere in the distance. And, okay, I don't know where that stamp went, but like I said, after I cleaned up, I don't know where everything is. But let me see something here. Okay, so this is this little fish. I used this one recently on that fishing pole. So there's this little kid with a fishing pole, and we put the fish at the end of it. I think Linda or someone, I don't know, someone beat me to it. That was like, I was just thinking about that, So I was able to see what it looked like before I did it, which is cool too. Okay, so there's that little fish right here swimming around in the shallows. And I'm going to put a little bit of that white pigment ink over the top of them too, to kind of obscure it a little bit more. Okay, go with something like that. Oh, I know. Here. So see this right here, where I put that fish like that? It's standing out a little bit too much. So what we'll do is we'll make it a little bit more obscure by adding yet another layer over the top of that. And I'll go with the StazOn just because I know StazOn will stick to all that colored pencil work that's all throughout this area in here. So I don't want to do it completely over the top of all of those fish, but if I can have a little bit of the top of this reed stamp over that fish, it'll be good. Now this is supposed to be in the foreground a little bit, but it kind of obscures that fish kind of swimming around in there. And there's the other one right in here, which you can often see. You know, if anyone fishes, you can go out there. You know, it's like you can kind of see this little shadow. You know what I mean? In the shallows, or they're just kind of waiting. You know, hovering there in the. You can just kind of make out their shape a little bit. Actually, let me see here. Okay, there we go. I don't want to insult a fish by putting it in like a a dumb scenario. In other words, that fish is going to be swimming where it's just like a sitting duck, and not hidden at all. And then I'll just kind of mute out some of those rocks that I just added in there. Actually, that stays on. It's a little bit wet, so let me see here. All right, there we go. So hopefully that looks like a little bit, a little bit more of like a layered thing, with something underneath the surface. So oftentimes in your water situations, you can put like light impressions of other rocks or something like. Actually, that some of those black rocks, maybe I should have stamped them out in blue or something like that, where they look more submerged, within the space. Then black here. Instead of just saying it, I'll do it here. There we go. All right. So anyways, there we go, like that. See that? It's like that would be like it's like a 10-pound, it's like a 10-pound, I don't know, whatever. 10-pound golden right in there, trout or whatever. I don't know, whatever you're fishing for in the countryside. So yeah, that little fish might be kind of cool down here too. I should do like a little. I should do this sometime when I should stamp this out in like an orangish tone where it's like a little koi sometime with this type of imagery, and I think that'd be kind of cool. All right, so anyways, here's some different scenarios here with that bridge stamp. I wanted to see that used. And I wanted to see how strong it would be within this given these given compositions like this. So, like I said, structures are often kind of a focal landing point, especially if I have like a lead in going up to it. I had this isolated bridge before, and I've used it, and I liked using it. But you kind of had to stamp out each side and then stamp that in there. And sometimes if I wanted something already kind of going through in the background, I had to mask off that area. So I just did it in one thing right here. I wasn't thinking about that, but I was thinking about it in terms of the usage with these types of images like that, and that's where it was kind of derived from. But I needed to spend a little bit more time with it and getting some of these areas around there kind of finished off and finalized. Specifically those bricks too. I needed to work on that a little bit where they would look like bricks within that space. Let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, Verna, the fisherman changed everything, huh? Okay, let's see. I stamp beach scenes on linen backgrounds and use soft pastels to color them with. I like the sound of that. Yeah, linen is something. I used to have a bunch of linen papers, and I don't know. I don't have any now, but I love linen. But I don't think I've ever stamped on it, or if I have, it hasn't been for like 25 years or something like that. I might have stamped something in the 90s on linen because I had a ton of, I think I had a ream of linen. And I don't know, I haven't seen it in years, so I know I've ran out of it. I just haven't thought about it. But that sounds like a great technique right there, Nicole. Um, the fog really enhances it. Yeah, I agree, Laura. Even the fog enhances, like I said, and there was some area, like I didn't like this area right here too much. Okay, so I just put a little bit of fog over that, and it just becomes this little kind of glowing illumination. But I think it enhanced this area right here. I think it looks better. It it expanded the textural range because it's crisp over here and it's soft right there. But also, it's lighter right in here now too. It's like a glowing light, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, it becomes like a very inviting. And I mentioned this before, so apologize for this for the people that have heard me mention this before. But people are just usually attracted to soft things, right? From a tactile standpoint. So if you see something that's soft, whatever, it could be an animal or it could be a blanket at, some store, you feel kind of inclined to go over and touch it, right? And that's what these things are, when we're doing cards or something like that, or scenes, okay, if something looks a little bit more inviting in terms of like a really soft light, it pulls people into the scene a little bit more. People get, if it's not in there, you can enjoy it as is, right? You know what I mean? It's transportive and everything like that. But I think the light can be an added type of kind of visual invitation to someone. It kind of gets them to linger around in there a little bit more, and that's one of the things I learned in just going through illustration. Illustrators, you're really successful if you have something in like a magazine or something like that. And if someone's flipping around through a magazine, if you get them to kind of, look at something for like an extra second or two, and then they flip on, that's the most you can hope for, in something like that. So I think all those little things like that, if you kind of expand on kind of the textural range of something, that's just one of those extra little things. So those little white, those little paint pens in here, those are crisp little light dots, and it's contrasted against just this warm, lighting in there. So these are crisp little light, because it's light against, something darker. That's just one of those extra little things you can do. You can throw it in your bag. You can have textural. You can, we have color, value, intensity, temperature, but you can add texture to your bag of tricks. And, it could be something really quite minimal. Even if it was just on that little fisherman right there and none in the background, I think that would be absolutely sufficient in terms of the expansion of your textural range of your entire scene, because you'll have something that's very soft against other things that are nice and crisp and saturated and whatnot. So, yeah. Let's see. Does Versamark work like Brilliance? Can people answer that one? I don't have any. I think I have one Versamark pad, and I've never used it. Okay, it's like from 30 years ago, probably. I don't know, 20 years ago, and I don't think I ever used it. But I thought Versamark wasn't Versamark something to do with embossing as well or something like that? I don't know I don't know if anyone answered down there. I'm scrolling down right now. I don't know, Caroline. I don't know if Versamark is a water-based pigment ink. Okay. I don't test it out and check it out and see. Okay, so let me see. VersaCraft water-based pigment ink pads on Goody. Good. What is that? Good I don't have my glasses on. So if there's a VersaCraft water-based pigmenting. That's awesome. Uh, as hopefully an alternative. I don't know. Thanks, Ebel. Is that how you pronounce that? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, is that in response to, I was mentioning a bird or something like that? Cranes would be awesome. Yeah. I did, even if it was like a little crane down here, you know what I mean? Just a little silhouette in here. I think that would be really cool. Or it'd be really cool. It's like a bird kind of standing in there. I do have that crane stamp that I can stamp down here. I don't want it right in the center because, we had that waterfall, and it's coming down like this. I want it off to the side, or maybe I'd put it over here like that, like rule of thirds like this, like a little silhouette. And then you can have like a couple like birds flying up here, or down here in the distance maybe, to create that little bit of a kind of a diagonal dynamic in here. Maybe. I don't know. But that, yeah, cranes are, I don't have cranes too, but I was going to use my other bird silhouette now that you reminded me of that. Okay, Jeannie's the one that beat me to the fishing bowl. Yeah. That was awesome, Jeannie. So see, we're thinking alike there. Or when you were doing it, it came to me in a vision as you were doing that one. Check out Jeannie's work on. If anyone's seen Jeannie's work, if you guys are on Facebook, I try to get Jeannie. I try to get you to add your stuff to that Flickr account. So if anyone's not on Facebook, they could see your pieces on just Flickr.com. But yeah, check out Stamp Expressionism to the max here with Jeannie's work. You got to add some of those old kind of I don't know, kind of pop art, pieces to this, this pattern. I don't know what you call it. It's like, I don't know what you would call it. So you got to do it like a mandala, type of thing with the stamps and those kind of not geographic, the geometric. I can't even think here. Your geometric stamping period. Hello, Froggy Fresh. See this right here? Froggy Fresh. See that right there? And then you see that fish down here? It's like a 10-pound trout. Right there. Right there. And then there's another one right there. It's right in the hole like a fish would be going out fishing too, But that fisherman should have known about that, The fish aren't going to be like right in here. They're going to be like right in here. Versamark is clear ink for emboss. Well, that's what I thought about the Versamark. Okay, so Versamark is the one, and then the what's Versafine then? And Versamark, okay, won't dry on glossy. That's why it's good for embossing though, right? You throw embossing powder on it. But what's the difference between Versamark and Versafine, right? Wait. Oh no, okay, never mind. No, what isn't there another Versamark something? Now I already know what Versafine is because that's this one right here. Or the Claire. I get confused with those Versamarks because I hadn't done that before. Okay, so Versamark has watermark and chalky ink pad. So the Versamark is like the old clear clear snap or chalk pads, right? Wasn't that who made those ones? I don't think I have a chalk here. Or the color box. Right? The color box used to come in the chalk, right? There was a bunch of stuff out there, and I wasn't using a lot of it, so I never knew what the properties were with a lot of that stuff, Like the Versamark, I think I might have one of those somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where it is. Here's other stuff right here. Ink off. Oh, this is stamp cleaner. Maybe I should use this. Excelsior premium dye. Oh, this is a ink. This is a. No, this is just a dye base pen. Oh, that looks like a pretty good red right there. This is probably 30 years old. It's like unopened. Huh. Okay, so let me see here. Do you mean VersaFine? VersaMark is for embossing. Well, that's what I thought there. VersaMark. I just used some VersaFine Clair on glossy. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the VersaFine Clair. Okay, so Ginger, oil-based pigment inks, which are all pigment inks. I don't know. Someone just mentioned there's another water-based one up there. Most pigment ink pads are oil-based, and they won't dry on glossy cardstock. So a lot of times people use those, oil-based pigment inks to do embossing because it didn't dry so fast on them. You know what I mean? They'd stamp something down there, embossing powder and emboss. So that's why Sukaneko came up with the Brilliance pads because people wanted sometimes a pigment ink that would dry on glossy cardstock. So that was the original purpose for this, is to stamp these, to ink up and to stamp on, your glossy cardstock. Okay. I've never used it that way because I don't really have any purpose for stamping something in, whatever, red Brilliance ink or something like that. Or I don't know, I just get a word stamp or something like that and stamp it on glossy cardstock. So I just have the black, white, silver, and gold Brilliance pads. And, to use on different things. I can use them on foils, your iridescent, Star Dream types of papers, those ones, the metallics. And it'll dry on those ones. Now, on some, you have to heat set it, though. But it will dry on those ones. You can heat set it and spray seal on those ones, okay? Okay, let's see. 2 different inks. Sometimes the point of fishing, especially trout, is not to catch fish. When I go fishing, I at least want to get a bite, though. I would do catch and release, though, these days. Unless I'm like deep sea fishing or something like that. One time I went to Pagosa Springs, which is southern Colorado, and we did I was learning fly fishing down there, and I hadn't taken any class or anything like that. And I think I got one bite in like a week, because you gotta know what you're doing, you know what I mean? And we didn't know what we were doing. But yeah, I I do like fishing though. I used to. But that was the first time I did fly fishing, though. We were using the wrong stuff, though. Colorbox ink. Okay, yeah, Colorbox did the chalk pads. Yeah. I don't know. Did anyone like those chalk pads? It seems like people like those chalk pads. I take it they were probably more opaque, or you can say, yeah, they were chalkier, But that's what I'm guessing. Versamark Dazzle. What's that? Is that some kind of metallic Versamark pad or something like that? There are so many pads out there, and so many different types of pads. If someone was to say these things, I kind of recognize the name of it, and I might have the gist of what it's about, but on some of them, I just had no clue. I don't know, are people using... Okay, Versamark is clear and takes days to dry. What? Okay, so what is the purpose of Versamark? Was it to do like a watermark type of thing, or are people embossing with that though? You know, uh, that's what I don't know. I thought someone said you emboss with it up I don't know up earlier in this convo. Close to my heart did chalk inks. Okay. Okay, color box chalk if all I used for years. Okay. Just gave them to my daughter. You just don't have any use for them anymore, Candy? So that's what you did your coloring with then, huh? Or your stamping and coloring with them? So the color box chalks then too. I take it you had if that's all you used for years, then you had the reinkers for all of them too. I'm just kind of curious to know if a lot of my color box pads, like the really old ones, the pads really they didn't disintegrate, but they really broke down after a while where I couldn't use them anymore. Of course, I mean, these things might have been 25 years old or 20 years old, so but some of them, yeah, some of them they really broke down on me. Okay, so Caroline, both. Okay. Hmm. You put powder on it and heat emboss it or use it as a watermark. So if you're using it as watermark, that's where it just takes forever to dry. So I take it that it's probably an oil-based ink then, because those oil-based ones really take a long time to dry. Used to use Versamark to get tone-on-tone images on colored cardstocks too. Tone on tone. What does that mean? Let me think. I'm trying to get a visual of what that would look like. So you're stamping something out in the Versamark and then you're using like a stamp positioner or something like a Misty or something like that, and then you color it up again and then you go over the top of it again or something like that. They don't work for Stampscaping. Oh, the chalk inks? I've seen chalk inks used with Stampscape stamps. Um, I didn't see it a lot, but they did like colored backgrounds, like a sunset, and then you stamp whatever the imagery right over the top of it. It would look better with like your solid imagery, where you can do like more silhouette style stamping on top of those chalk backgrounds. But I don't I haven't seen it a lot though. But one time I asked someone, I said, "Hey, the colors were like super super vibrant," and I said, and it was so vibrant. I think I asked them if it was oxides, okay, and they said no, it was chalks. And it was someone in the Facebook group, and it was years ago. Because I mean, I remember thinking, "Oh, really? I didn't think the chalks would get that bright." But maybe it was just like a really deep saturation. I don't remember what the scene looked like either, and they didn't mention it in the description either. So, yeah. But yeah, I haven't seen it used. But sometimes I've thought that the chalk inks. I haven't thought about this for a while, but I've often thought the chalk pigment inks would look pretty cool on a dark matte cardstock. Like say for example, you got a chalk blue, light blue, and then your white. And let's say it's around like a moon in the sky. But those chalks on that black paper, I think, in my mind, in theory, it would be kind of cool to add like that cloudy background. I mean, you can do it with just white too. But the chalk, colors, you can do it now and with like, you know, different types of hue um, in there. You see blue clouds and white and different lighter colors on top of black, and then stamps like some trees in the foreground, like in a dark silhouette against that nighttime cloudy sky, or you can just do them like trees in white on that black, cardstock. Or do them both. You can do white in the background and darker ones in the foreground or something like that. But I wanted to do that scene. Or I don't know. I mean, I wanted to do a million types of scenes, but that was one of those scenarios there that I thought the chalks would look a little bit better if they were a little bit stronger against the black. Because sometimes when I just apply the straight brilliance like that, or I don't know, or maybe not the brilliance, but other types of colors, they were a little bit too transparent to get the look that I was going after. But I speculated that the chalks might be having that chalkier filler in there might be more opaque than just the straight pigment inks against dark backgrounds. I don't know. That was my theory, I think. I think that's what I was thinking back when. Or something that I want to do, especially when I started getting into, when I started using my stuff like the lapis, startering lapis lazuli and stuff like that. I wanted more things to use on it than, I don't know, whatever I was using at the time. There's so many techniques out there and combinations. It's crazy, huh? Okay. Or to do a watermark technique. Watermark dries quickly on matte. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense because it's, yeah, those oil-based pigment inks. I thought it was they need to dry by absorption as well as evaporation. Where on glossy cardstock, it almost depended on, solely on evaporation with no absorption. It just can't. They can't seem to penetrate that glossy coating in there like a water-based medium can. I don't know. Maybe the pores are just small enough, for water to get through, but maybe not oils or most oil ones. I don't know. Okay, Nicole's talking about watermark tone on tone. Oh, huh. When you stamp on colored card, the stamp area is... Oh! Yeah. Okay, I forgot about that one. Yeah, with the Versamark. Huh. I never did that, but I remember seeing that. So it looks like, it looks like a wet area then, where it's, something gets darker with it, but then it just stays that way, right? That seems like it'd be a good way to go. Like, especially for like shadows or something like that, or background imagery too, in a really graphic style. Candy style has changed through the last 25 years. It'd be interesting, I did this one technique. That reminds me, I did this one technique, I don't know, a few years ago, where I did a scene in the same technique that I used to do, like when I first started, like in the 90s. And it was really weird just doing that style. I did it with this thing called the tonal applicator. And I think I only used markers, right, to color the stamp and to color that tonal applicator with. But you had to try. Well, I don't. Maybe you don't have the media anymore, the same media that you did 25 years ago, Candy. But you should try if you have or if any of you have like, the same stuff that you had, try doing something with only the things that were available to you 25 years ago in the style that you did 25 years ago. It's kind of interesting to do that. I never did it again. But it was kind of interesting doing that. It's on one of the videos here. Not that everyone's interested, but it was interesting for me to do that. And I didn't have as many pens though either as I used to. The Marvy pens. So, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Versamark dries differently depending on the paper. So probably Horsey Girl. So it probably depends on the porous, how porous the paper is, then I guess. Uh, hmm. Chalk inks didn't bleed if you got water on a card like dye inks did. Okay, good. Yeah, the chalk inks are probably like the pigment inks, right? I'd imagine they're oil based, I would think. Uh, huh. It'd be interesting to take advantage of that oil-based nature of those things to do some sort of background technique, maybe, where you have some of the oil-based chalks or something like that, swiped into a morphic background with some dyes, and then you do this like, uh, water bleaching technique, but where you have the oil-based pigment inks or whatever, that's doing a resist, that wouldn't bleach out. It seems like that could be a cool kind of technique if you're able to utilize it for some sort of purposeful technique. It seems like you'd have to experiment with that a little bit. But I'm starting to play around with those types of things more and more these days. Um, to come up with just some different textural backgrounds and that type of thing. Versamark on uncoated cards, colored cardstock or matte leaves a lighter impression on the card. I thought the Versamark left a darker impression. So an uncoated colored, really? That's interesting. Huh. The only way I get chalk inks to bleed was to split. Oh, alcohol in them. Yeah, because the alcohol puts the oil. It's like a solvent to the um, oil. That makes sense. So did you used to do that, Nicole, for kind of some kind of effect? You had like a spritzer bottle with alcohol in it then? That's pretty cool. I've only done that spritzer thing on dye-based inks with water, but it seems like you can get kind of a deeper or a different kind of saturation than with the pigment inks with the alcohol then. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, tone on cone could be the watermark properties of Versamark. Stamping on a matte colored cardstock would become darker color. Okay, I just, what? Someone said, okay, so CM and Horsey Girl, you two are gonna have to fight it out here. One says lighter, and one said, I always thought it was the darker though, CM. Do you mean darker, CM? Because that's what I thought with the Versamark. And unless there's two different pads, one leaves one lighter and one leaves a darker color. And that's what we're talking about, two different things here. My brain's too small to take in all this information. Versamark you can brush with mica powder also. Oh, and it's going to stick to that uh, impression. And then you brush like the excess mica off. And then what do? You heat set it or something like that? Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So CM, yeah, darker. Okay. That confused me. I thought, right, if it's doing like lighter and darker, we're talking about like a magic, ink there that's like super versatile. But which one would you know that it's going to do? It's like one of those color tricks. There used to be these inks called color tricks, I think, where you color something, then you go through it with its other pen, and it changes the colors of that type of thing. Oh, Ginger, you have the three tonal applicators. Yeah, tonal applicator. The other ones really weren't tonal applicators. I don't know. I named them that for the shapes, but they're more like textural pattern applicators. Yeah, with the rays and the flames. So yeah, the ray one you can use it like in, I don't know, if you had more space up here and you wanted rays to be coming out like that, then you use the tonal applicator ray up there, kind of pointing towards your light source like that. Yeah, I need to use that again sometime, and I haven't used the flame one in years. But I used that with a totem little creature from I think Gumbo Graphics or something like that. But I had these like flames emanating from the figure with the flame one. Yeah, that tonal applicator, I'm telling you, back in the 90s, I don't know when I stopped using that. It worked for me for what I always wanted to do with it, but my problem with that was that if someone just bought that stamp, and this is pre-internet too, so it was hard to explain to someone that bought that how to use it, and my write-up was like 2 pages, just kind of explaining this little tapping motion of it. But then when I went somewhere and to a store out in Arizona, and they had the color box stylus tools, so when I was demonstrating the tonal applicator just for the staff, someone said, "Hey, Kevin, have you ever tried this?" And she gave me the color box stylus tool with that foam tip. I thought, "Oh, okay, this seems like it has a lot of potential," and I thought it would be more intuitive, just using sponging because that's what people used to do before. Basically everything. We used cosmetic sponges like those makeup wedges. They're like triangle, wedge shape ones. And that's what people were doing a lot of toning with, but they didn't like that hard, square kind of edge, a 90-degree edge on those ones. Which the stylus tools, it had that edge, but it was a much softer sponge tip. So I thought, okay, I think people are going to have an easier time with that than, kind of the tonal applicator. Unless they were, if the tonal applicator did that in a workshop or, making takes at the convention, they had it down pat. But, if they didn't do it for a while or something like that, they'd say, hey, if you have, I got that tonal applicator last year, but I got it home and I forgot how you used it, So I thought, just sponging, people will know how to do that better. So I just never went back to the tonal applicator. I knew someone that really liked it and they taught with the tonal applicator for years. Like, uh, but I don't know. I just thought that sponging is easier. So I still play with my older ink pads by incorporating them with the new ones to get color blends. I do that too. I use just about all of my pads until they go dry. Except I did stop using these pads, Vivid, because I think they stopped making these like probably before 2000, So yeah, but my Marvy pads, a lot of these are like 25 years old. I really should stop using them, probably, because when I'm using them in these videos, sometimes people think I got to use that kind of pad to do that type of scene or something like that, which isn't the case. But, people that don't know that, they might be checking out a video for the first time and they think that you have to use exactly, I should take these out of the view right here because that makes, so if someone just logs on, they think I did it with that. But yeah, sometimes they get too brand specific with media where it's really more about being type specific. So, if it's a dye-based ink application, you can use whatever brand of dyes or, watercolor pencils. I don't know, I just use whatever I have. So it wasn't like I tested out a bunch of different, watercolor pencil things before I started using that one. It's the case with some of those things, like dye-based inks, but, I don't know. This one was mostly like Memento, I think, today, just because I had them right here on my desk because I used them for a workshop. Okay, let's see. Ginger, you have 2 Vivid pads. Those Vivid pads that I just showed you, they're like from the like mid 90s, and they're still juicy for some reason. They're like super awesome pads, and I like the material on them. Does anyone have Catherine Pooler pads and Vivid pads? I love the Marvy material for their pads, but the Vivid pads have this kind of spongy texture to them. And I was speculating that that could be the reason why these things are still juicy. I mean, I don't use these either, but you think these would dry out over time. But I thought I took a look at that Catherine Pooler pad, and just from the photograph, though, I thought that looks like the vivid material for their pads and not the fabric style. So I thought, oh, if those Catherine Pooler pads have that type of material for the pad, that bodes well for them in terms of longevity, because those ones never broke down on me either. But like I said, I haven't been using them though either. But I don't know, they're really awesome. Okay, so Ginger, do they have the same spongy fabric as the Vivid pads? That's what I want to know. I think someone answered that. I don't know. Someone might have answered that for me before, but I forgot. Or I don't know. Do I have a? Okay, so I have one of the Catherine Pooler ones right here, but this is the archival pad, so I'm not sure if that's the same pad as the dye-based inks. Maybe it is. Nancy from Nancy Stamps sent me this one. She had I don't know, she had a couple, but this is the archival one. Is the archival, or are they all archival? I thought this was the one that was, okay, yeah, this one is a permanent ink, so it's more like it's more like a stays on, right? But I thought the rest of the Pooler ones were dyes. Okay. So, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I agree, Paula. There's nothing better than media that works like over time. Which most of it does, there were some pads that, weren't right, they weren't meant to last, like rainbow pads, because they all kind of blend in with one another. But I do have some other pads that frayed on me a little bit, when I was inking it up, and then you stamp it out and it's like, oh man, I got this like furry little thing, and then you look at the stamp and then you got the pad and it was kind of starting to fray on you. Those ones weren't too good, but yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think those pads might have the Vivid pad fabric similar to it. This one here looks a little bit softer to me, but like a dense foam pad. I that's my preference. Okay, over like a fabric pad. Now I'm not going to stop buying fabric style pads like this. I mean, they're just dressing. There's nothing wrong with these, but this is more of that fabric style pad, and it gets a little bit crumbly, I don't know, to me, over time, but we're talking about, but I use my pads like for, decades though. So, if something starts breaking down after 15 years, you know what I mean? It's still a great pad, but I don't know. I guess I'm kind of used to things working for 30. Okay, the Vivid head has a smoother layer on top. Okay, it's dye-based and softer. It has a soft. Yeah, that's what it seemed to be. This one seems a little bit softer than the Vivids, But I don't know. It seems pretty cool though. I need to try this one out though, with the I don't know, with whatever. So this one's a permanent one. It's called Midnight. Gorgeous stamped images on coated and uncoated cardstock. So I want to see if this one will... Wait a minute. This is a permanent ink right here, but it says you can use it with alcohol and water-based markers. Okay, so this is not like a stays-on then, right? But this is quick drain and permanent. That usually entails like those solvent style inks. And I gotta give this one a shot. So anyway. All right. Great info here. Thanks for the information. And for checking out the live stream. Hope you enjoyed the Mystic bridge. All right. Some more things to come with the Mystic Bridge. I want to try this in a bunch of different scenarios. And yeah. I want to do this under like a mid, speaking of like a moon or something like that too. And I wanted to try this on the holographics. And I want to do this in a mirror, a reflection card too. So if I'm doing this on a reflection card, I don't want all this in that reflected area. So it's going to be like this part is going to be stamped above the foil, right? And this lower portion is going to be stamped into the foil, I think. So I think I should be able to get a reflection of that bridge in that mirrored area. So it's going to, here, let me see. So it'll look like, kind of like that in there. I mean, we're going to have more stuff coming out this way, but I wanted to see what it would look like. And then I want to put like a moon above the bridge, like, or something like up here, reflected down here. So you get that, see that bridge up there is like that. And then you get the bridge reflecting in this water down here. And then you'd also have like a moon right in here too, which would be, reflecting from up here. So that's my reflection card theory on this one. Then we'll have some foreground in here or something like that. So I want to see something like that in this with this bridge. So that's another thing that I was thinking about when I was designing this one. Are the reflection cards and stuff like that, and those types of applications. So, yeah. All right, so everyone, thanks so much for the information. I learn a lot, from all of your comments too on different media and everything like that. And I like getting feedback too on like stuff like the white pigment ink too. So we'll have to schedule some sort of fun with fog. Zoom meeting sometime, to get that really kind of refined and, for anyone that might want to do it, that, if you're having a hard time or if you just want to join in, that'd be cool too. So we'll schedule something like that at some point in time. And yeah, if you have Zoom and you can jump in there, that'd be great. And we'll get you'll learn everything you ever wanted to know about fog and mist. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of evening. Thanks so much for joining in here.